92.5.
Radio Gold 90.5, and I would like to welcome you to the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. My name is Senna Nombo. The show is proudly sponsored by Ines Fly, Franco Trading Enterprise, Apollonia City, Kulungana Limited, TT Brothers, and it's live on affiliates across the country, including Sekpele 104.3 in Likpe, Radio Pando 102.5 in Pando, Lukusi Radio 96.1 is in Virgo, Lukwati, FM 96.9 in Akachi, Radio Kita 95.7 in Saboba, GFM Radio in London, and on Radio Gold 905.com, among others. Before I move on to the main topic for the day, happy birthday to you, Abigail Elom Mensah. That's coming from Eduji Kujo Tamaklo, and we understand you're celebrating your birthday. Happy birthday to you. And also today on the program, we are discussing the Founders Day celebration. That is the birthday of Osajivo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and his vision for Pan-Africanism, the Pan-Africanism agenda and the politics of neo-colonialism, imperialism in Africa and its impact on the African economic independence. And then we'll discuss thoroughly Gilbert's position on government's agreement with StarTimes to control Ghana's digital terrestrial television spectrum and the challenges to the broadcasting industry in the country and related matters. And if we have time, we'll talk about the 4 price hikes and the cry of commercial drivers. In fact, everybody has been affected. We'll talk about that one too. And to discuss these topics with me this morning, Kwesi Prajinia, who is managing editor of Inside newspaper, Sam Piale, president of Professional Forum of the National Democratic Congress, and a former High Commissioner to India, Comrade Mutala Ibrahim Mohammed, former Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, and Bernard Mona is a national chairman of the People's National Convention. They will be joining me to discuss these issues. Just a quick message from one of our sponsors saying bed bugs are dangerous pests that cause sleeplessness, tiredness, body rashes, anemia due to blood loss, and general discomfort to humans. Unfortunately, they are so difficult to get rid of. They spread in mattresses, pillows, bags, lockers, clothes, and even in hidden places. They must be dealt with. Choose the Innisfly bed bug solution to get rid of the bed bugs easily. The Innisfly bed bug solution exterminates bed bugs dealing with minor and major infestations, effective for up to 6 weeks, and is safe for humans. Spray the bed bugs out today with the Innisfly bed bug solution. Innisfly recommends thorough treatment with the 10-liter ready-to-use EM house solution for institutions and households with high infestation. For bulk purchase, call 05777 01000, 05777 01000. Innisfly, beautiful protection. Also, the management of Franco Trading wishes to inform the general public that the ongoing promotion on some WhatsApp platforms in relation to phone top-up for an iPhone is a scam. Thus, we advise that the general public should desist from giving monies to any unauthorized persons, either by mobile money or cash, in act of getting a brand new iPhone. Please report such incidents to the nearest police station or call 0302 225651 or 0246 422 338 or 0247 033 429 for further information. That's issued by the management of Franco Trading. And well, don't forget you can join the show by sending your message through our WhatsApp platform. It's 0233 995905, 0233 995905, and of course we are live on PAP MCGH on Facebook. Once again, if you just join us, you're welcome to the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. Well, let's start with our very first topic that has to do with the celebration of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's birthday yesterday and his vision for especially having to do with Pan-Africanism, and also on the economic policies Africa has chosen. He spoken about neoliberalism, imperialism, and neo-colonialism and how it relates to our current circumstances. Let's start with Comrade Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to your cherished listeners, and of course, good morning to my uncle, Ambassador Sam Piali, and the other senior comrades. I think that this topic could not have been discussed at any time, more suited than now. And for me, I think it's important that such intellectual discourse are engaged time to time. We must not wait until we are celebrating the birthday of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah that we have discussions about his legacy. We have discussions about what he stood for. We have discussions about what he did for Ghana and the entire continent of Africa, and by extension, the entire black race. I think that we must not wait until such a time. This has been a very emotive issue that was initiated by the very people who bastardized Nkrumah, who felt that Nkrumah didn't have any legacy, and who felt that everything needed to be done at a time that Nkrumah was unjustifiably, illegally, and criminally overthrown. That same time, they felt that that was not satisfactory enough. They needed to destroy his history. So I have listened to the narrative, particularly coming from those who knew and those who do not know, and who fall victims to the propaganda that is done calculatively to destroy the legacy of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. That why are we talking about Nkrumah? That Nkrumah is dead and long gone. That why are we talking about Nkrumah as though he was the only person who single-handedly indeed attained independence for us. Now, some of them have also argued that if you don't belong to the CPP, you belong to NDC, you ought not talk about Nkrumah's legacy. And I think that I would situate my discussion in these issues that have been raised. As a matter of fact, we need to have an appreciation of what Nkrumahism is all about, or Nkrumah's ideology. Let's begin to appreciate one fact, that Nkrumah's ideology transcends the borders of Ghana. Nkrumah, even though was a Ghanaian, but he was beyond Ghana. He was beyond the continent of Africa. He was admired and loved and cherished by many people across the globe, even those who didn't even like him. But one thing that they admitted was the fact that Nkrumah stood tall when it comes to Africans who helped to liberate the continent. Let me also quickly say that in situating my discussion in a context, that those of us who would also want to defend the legacy of Nkrumah must also humbly admit that first and foremost, Nkrumah was a human being, that he had some frailties, that Nkrumah didn't do everything to perfection, that there were certain things that Nkrumah also did, that we must admit that perhaps if Nkrumah were to live and then had the same opportunity, he would have done them differently. We also need to admit that. Now, having admitted that he's a human being, then we are bound to admit that he certainly would have made some mistakes, depending on how you look at it. It is also imperative to defend the legacy of Nkrumah because they were deliberate and conscious effort through academia, through politics, through even traditions and customs and culture to destroy this outstanding legacy of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. To that extent, there is the need for some people, particularly those of us young ones who have interest in politics or who have interest in African history, to make it a conscious effort to read and restructure the history of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and his legacy that was completely destroyed. Now, and I say this because when Nkrumah was overthrown, University of Ghana, the foremost, academic institution and higher academic institution in this country, they gathered all Nkrumah's books and burnt them on the campus. And I feel ashamed that as a product of that university, who spent at least several years in the university and continue to spend some years currently in the university, I feel ashamed that in our history, as an institution, that such a thing ever happened. They gathered Nkrumah's books and burnt them at the full glaring and participation of authorities of the universities and the criminals who overthrew Nkrumah's administration at that time. I can't understand why we would name after our airport after a criminal who overthrew a constitutionally and elected government. And now people just recently, people would want us to shut up because they may have some ties with families of those people. He was a criminal. He did something that was unjustified, and we ought not have mentioned, in fact, named after such a person, an airport like the airport that we have in Accra. Many people can disagree, but let's stop the hypocrisy and admit that if we want to condemn the excesses of every military takeover, then we must not have limitations. We must extend to anybody who did what as long as Ghana was born as a republic. So I'm saying that these were deliberate attempts. So the fact that those books were banned, the fact that they named after people who indeed overthrew Nkrumah unjustifiably, was to give credence to the overthrow of Nkrumah, and once again to destroy the legacy of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. It is also important that students of political history would appreciate one fact, that Nkrumah was described a Liberian. They said Nkrumah was not a Ghanaian. The extent to which his mother, who was over 80 years, who was virtually blind, they dragged the woman commissions after commission that the woman should say that Nkrumah wasn't her biological son. Maybe perhaps a man can say that, but a woman who carried a baby in the stomach for 9 months certainly would not be able to say this. So all these things were attempts to destroy the legacy of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Do you know that Nkrumah had gotten people to write an African encyclopedia? They were about completing the work, writing an African encyclopedia. This book was banned by the supervision of the very people with whom we are naming our airports and other international and very important edifices. By them, they bent the African Encyclopedia. So they didn't only destroy the legacy of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, they destroyed the legacy of academia. They destroyed something that would have been very useful for people who want to do research, people who want to have a proper appreciation of the African history. So this thing was also done. Now, if you put all these things in context, you would realize that, yes, there should be people who would want to reconstruct the deconstructed legacy of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah that was done by people. So that, for me, is the justification why people like us and many other people who may not have the platform that we have, who may not have the opportunity to speak for the people of this country to listen, that those people think that there is the need for something to be done about this history and about this legacy of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. That is the justification. And also, you don't need to be a CPP man, you don't need to be a PNC man to be able to defend the legacy of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Nkrumah's legacy was not a political legacy, so to speak. In fact, it transcended the borders of politics. It has to do with culture, it has to do with history, it has to do with even religion to a very large extent. It was an ideology in its own respect. So let those people understand that I belong to NDC proudly, but nothing bars me from being an Nkrumahs. Being an Nkrumahs doesn't mean that I should be belong to my brother's party, the PNC, or belong to the CPP. Nkrumahs is an ideology that has no respect for an individual or a single political party, that transcends. So even if you have people within the Buza Danko stock who believes in the ideological positions and what Nkrumah professes, I don't think that you can say that they ought not be Nkrumah. So this, in fact, having put this in context, let's look at the need for the celebration and the argument as to whether it should be Founders with apostrophe S, or should be Founders Day. And I have listened to very interesting argument. We have never said anywhere that Nkrumah was the only person who alone got independence for Ghana. And that is why I situated my discussion by saying that we, those who would defend Nkrumah ourselves, should admit that he was a human being and that he certainly would have done certain things not right. I agree. But way between the positives and negatives of Nkrumah, you can only come to one conclusion, that the positives outweighs the negatives that Nkrumah might have had because he's a human being and therefore would have some frailties. So I am saying that even if you look at it in that context, you would come to one conclusion, that there can be several founders. Now, this business of founders, the argument that have been made strongly has to do with the fact that Nkrumah was invited to come and join the UGCC, and that Nkrumah used the UGCC as a platform to rise to fame, and therefore whatever Nkrumah did credit must be given to all those who were members of the UGCC. If you want to stretch that argument, Nkrumah didn't just come to join the UGCC. In fact, as a matter of fact, he was invited to, and indeed, certain promises were made upon which Nkrumah came. They promised they were going to pay him £100 a month, every month. They promised they were going to give him a car. They promised they were going to give him an accommodation, a house to live in. When Nkrumah came, none of these promises were fulfilled. Nkrumah didn't say, because those promises were not fulfilled, I am going back to the United Kingdom or possibly to the United States of America. Because the reasons why Nkrumah had to go to Europe through stowaway, through hiding in the ship, was because long before he left the shores of this country, his yearning, his desire was to see how he could liberate this country. So that was the reason. So if there was an opportunity at a time for him to come back to support in the cause of such liberation, Nkrumah certainly would have come. And that is one point. Two, there was also a bit of arrogance in the quest of those who felt that Nkrumah was undeserving and who still think, sadly and unfortunately, that Nkrumah was undeserving of that particular recognition. One, they felt that Nkrumah was coming from an ethnic group that was not known. In other words, his ethnic group was not, if you like, at par with certain ethnic groups in this country, either in terms of numbers or in terms of domination. So they couldn't fathom why a person from such an ethnic group could be the person who would lead the liberation of this country and by extension, the liberation of the continent of Africa. That is one. Two, they also felt that he wasn't coming from that bourgeoisie family. His father wasn't a lawyer. His mother wasn't a lawyer or a businessman. His parents were not wearing the 3 suits, you know, with, if you like, the best of suits and the best of shoes. So they couldn't understand why a son of a teacher, you know, a local teacher, could be the one leading. So this was also one of the reasons. The other issue has to do with the fact that they felt that he didn't have the kind of influence they had. They had parents who were very rich and they lived a particular life. They had gelled, if you like, with the so-called colonial masters. I call them colonial thieves. And they couldn't understand why Nkrumah could be. So some of these issues, they may not admit, but all these issues were factors that led to the decision. Look, I read I Speak of Freedom, written by Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and I can tell you, many of the books of Nkrumah that I read, books that he personally wrote, and books that many people have written about him, I came across where Nkrumah even had to apologize to be allowed to remain in the UGCC. The impression is created as if Nkrumah arrogantly walked away from the UGCC. Some have even gone ahead to state factual and historical incorrect statement that Nkrumah had long intended to form the CPP whilst he was still a member of the UGCC. By the way, the UGCC was not a political party. It was a movement. As a matter of fact, the UGCC didn't have a constitution. Now, how can a political party without a constitution, without rules and regulations governing the conduct of those who are supposed to be members of such? One of the other reasons, culminating on the fact that the guy came from a very lesser-known ethnic group, he came from a lesser-known family, he was not a son to lawyers and businessmen. Nkrumah came, when he came as the general secretary, the very people with whom he could operate were the fishermen, the farmers, the traders, the Kayayes, those who were not recognized. These were the people Nkrumah had to deal with, and that deepens the anger. Now, let me come to another very funny issue. That part of the reasons why Nkrumah was sacked from the UGCC, that because he was using the word comrade anytime he wanted to address people. And that explains why some of us, even when I was in Parliament, I insisted I didn't want to be recognized by that title, honorable. I preferred to be called comrade. The other issue, and that is why I would admonish all those of us who believe in center left, particularly the NDC, this business of honorable for me is absolutely bonkers. We need to be addressing each other as comrade, because for me, it has an implication, if for nothing at all, the symbolism. The other issue has to do with the fact that Obechebe Lamte and Ofuriata went to Nkrumah's office when he was out, ransacked the office, and found an unsigned communist membership card. Unsigned communist membership card, and by extension, these were the basis on which they felt that Nkrumah ought to be taken away from the UGCC. But all these things were just smokescreen. The reasons are the reasons I stated earlier. He was coming from a lesser-known tribe. he was coming from an unknown family. His father wasn't a businessman, neither was he a lawyer. The parents were not rich. He was coming from a village called Nkronfol, and therefore he could not be the one leading the independence of this or the liberation of this country. The other issue that I think that we need to look at has to do with what Nkrumah left for us. I have listened to some interesting argument by those who are also anti, or if you like, proponents of destroying the legacy of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, that Nkrumah focused much on the liberation and development of Africa than Ghana. And I say that the vision Nkrumah had, I believe that if many leaders had that vision, I don't think that they would have been where we are. Today, we are all complaining in Africa that intra-trade in Africa falls just within 11 to 12% intra-trade. And there's no denying the fact by either economists or development, aspect, that one of the banes of our inability to progress speedily and improve the living conditions of our people is our inability to trade among ourselves. Now, what Nkrumah did was that the resources we had at that time, we needed to liberate ourselves politically. And if you understand and appreciate the ideological positions of the African leaders at that time and the exigencies of the time, you would agree with Nkrumah that that was the best thing Nkrumah did. Now, when Nkrumah was helping other African countries to liberate, the view was that let's have the political liberation first, and then we look at the economic liberation. Now, this was the viewpoint of many, even those who were the boot-licking, position of the West, particularly some of the Francophone-speaking countries. But this was a fact. Now, if we had followed suit, what Nkrumah had envisioned, what Patrice Lumumba, Samora Machel, Kenneth Kaunda, who were even contemporary, the viewpoint of these people, if we had followed suit, I believe that we would have been talking about intra-trade among ourselves ranging around 80%. And that would have been beneficial. Today, and I always use this example, take Ghana and Nigeria. Nigeria has a huge petrochemical industry. And in the petrochemical industry, salt plays a significant role in processing the oil that they have. Now, there is empirical and provable facts that the oil that is found in areas where, the salt that is found closer to areas you have these chemicals are the best salts that could be used to process those chemicals. So why is it that Nigeria will be going to Brazil, spend billions of dollars in the importations of salt to process or to be used in their petrochemical industry when we have huge deposits of salt in Ghana? We don't have the capacity to do that. Now, Nkrumah and Co. envisioned that we should have a common market, and that common market would have propelled, the development and the expansion and standardization of some of the things that we would have otherwise been engaged in. So this was the vision. So you could not have achieved a common market if some African countries were still under the bondage and subjugation of the colonial chiefs. You certainly couldn't have done that. So there was every economic sense why Nkrumah could spend our resources, if you like, to help other African countries to be liberated. Because for us to be able to achieve the economic liberation, we needed to have achieved the political liberation first and foremost. So this was a vision. Now, I have also listened to people who have said that when we had independence, Nkrumah was bequeathed with a lot of money and that our population was just 6 million. Why is it that today, South Korea, Malaysia and those countries are better than Ghana? And they justify this funny argument with the fact that Nkrumah spent some of our money in helping other African countries to liberate. I ask them one simple question. What did the West want in South Korea? Do they have gold? Do they have diamond? Do they have bauxite? Do they have cocoa? The West was uninterested in whatever was happening in those countries. What do they need in Malaysia? And two, what percentage of the American market or the Western market was open to these people? So clearly, if we were subjugated, we were colonized, we were kept in bondage, and captivity by these colonial masters because of the resources that we have. Those countries, they didn't have the things they needed. So they were disinterested in whatever happens to them. But for us, having succeeded in liberating many African countries, they came with what Nkrumah called the new colonization or new colonies. Today, we have a Chinese neo-colonies in the shores of this country and many African countries. And what they did, Nkrumah described it as seductive promises in terms of projects. They seduce our leaders and our leaders easily fall to that. And they did that by using other African leaders who virtually hated Nkrumah, who were jealous of Nkrumah. And in fact, they were virtually, some of them didn't have any reason why they should be opposed to the things Nkrumah stood for and what he indeed preached at that time. Today, the OAU, the vision of Nkrumah, what Nkrumah stood for with other comrades, Haile Selassie and those leaders, what they stood for is what the AU is now struggling to achieve. Gaddafi, as a matter of fact, what Gaddafi was doing was revisiting the vision of these people. How are we going to? They may struggle to achieve the things that OAU stood for. Of course, in a different way, because times have actually changed, and it can't be the way as it would have been if we had followed suit or if society was static. That is what they are now struggling to do. What are we now having? These regional and sub-regional bodies. All the sub-regional bodies and regional bodies, ECOWAS, SADC, AU, they are all geared towards coming to have a common continental union. And they think that the only way we can charter that path is to begin looking at sub-regional and regional bodies as a means of which we can, at the long run, have a common continental union in the field of security, in the field of trade, in the field of many other areas. This was what Nkrumah and co. envisioned. And I believe that if we never truncated the vision and what they stood for, I don't think that it would have been where we are today. The other issue has to do with the fact that some take the SSS history book. I was fortunate to have done history at the SSS. And in teaching, I taught social studies before. Take the JSS or the social studies. Now, Guggisberg is praised as one of the outstanding governors who has ever governed the territories. And they praise him because that he's supposed to have engaged in massive infrastructure development. This is the kind of patriotism that is being fed to us. It was fed to me, fed to many people. But when you look at the kind of development and infrastructure that Guggisberg built, it isn't that he loved us. He built them in areas where they could expedite the exploitation of our resources. The railways, the roads were built from where they could get the gold, the diamond, and the bauxite to the harbors, where they can facilitate the more exploitation of our resources. That was precisely what they did. So now we have been told that we should praise him. So if you don't have the opportunity to be interested in reading and begin to appreciate and do critical analysis of the things Guggisberg did, you would begin to you would continuously thinking that, oh, the whites, after all, were not so bad. There were some of them who were interested in helping us to grow. So we need to be able to change the paradigm. We need to be able to look at our curricula. How do we instill patriotism in the young ones at the primary school, the GHS to the SSS? It can be part of it. Civic education. What is wrong? There have been a lot of propositions. There have been a lot of demand that we should add into our curriculum civic education, because that is the only way psychologically you can begin to indoctrinate people into believing that there is something in Africa that ought to be taken serious. Now, people must not also blindly defend the legacy of Nkrumah. Let us also admit that Nkrumah might have done certain things which were legally right, but morally, you ask yourself whether they were justified. The PDA, if you ask me, under the prevailing circumstances, it was legal right. But people would argue on the basis of moral justification, whether there could be another way. Today, the United Kingdom and them, the British and others, are now passing anti-terrorism laws, which are more draconian than the PDA. Because remember at that time, there were certain areas in Ghana Nkrumah could not even visit, but for huge security. That people who agreed with Nkrumah's ideology and his political party were killed. I remember senior comrade Dr. Twenedu had indicated that when he was even a kid in Kumasi, he saw a woman. They used mortar and pounded on some part of the woman that I may not be graphically described on this program, because their crime was that they were CPP members. So under the prevailing circumstances, when you had people who were engaged in terrorism sponsored by political elite at that time, when there were certain areas that Nkrumah indeed could not visit but huge security, when people's lives could not be protected, under the prevailing circumstances, Nkrumah needed to have done something like that. And that is why they say when we are in extreme realities, you need extreme resolutions. So it is good we go back and look at the history. We have never said that others also didn't contribute, even though by their actions and inactions, they made public pronouncement and said that they were not interested in independence. They voted against the motion of destiny. As a matter of fact, when Nkrumah was overthrown, under Buzia, a bill was sent to Parliament which was enacted into law, making the pronunciation of the name Nkrumah a state crime. All these things happened. So we would go back to those history and reconstruct the legacy of Nkrumah, which was consciously and deliberately destroyed. I think the time has come for us to begin setting the record straight, that this legacy is a legacy that lives on. It is not for nothing that at the AU building, they didn't see the need to put the statue of anybody but Nkrumah. It is not for nothing that the BBC voted Nkrumah the African of the millennium. Not century, millennium, 1,000 years, including those who liberated parts of the northern Africa, parts of Africa, Nkrumah. In fact, and the distance was too wide in terms of the vote that all these people had. I don't think that those people would have also been deceived into believing that Nkrumah was just an outstanding person. So if there was a deliberate and conscious effort to destroy the legacy of Nkrumah, by which people indeed bent his book, bent an African encyclopedia, we were told stories. If you read, they said Nkrumah had kept human beings at the Flagstaff House and that Nkrumah was an occult, he was a Liberian, he wasn't a Ghanaian. I think that it behoves on us as people, particularly younger generation, to also do everything possible to reconstruct that philosophy, the ideology, and the legacy that Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah indeed lived. Tell me one single project Nkrumah did under his tenure that is still not beneficial to the people of this country. Now, if you are saying that Nkrumah was bequeathed with a lot of money, let's begin to analyze that within the 6 years of Nkrumah's reign, from the Republic 1960 to 1966, what was the level of improvement in the field of education, in the field of health, infrastructure development? I think that is a match what Nkrumah indeed did. So when you begin to weigh those ones, you would come to one conclusion, that Nkrumah should have been left. Now, if you say that Nkrumah had declared one-party state and therefore that made him undemocratic, hypocritically, the very people who accuse him of declaring one-party state were hailing Ifubwanye, who had declared one-party state long before Nkrumah did that. Ifubwanye was the idol, and he had declared one-party state long before Nkrumah did that. If you feel very comfortable and convenient to compare our developmental trajectory with that of Malaysia, then you should also be reminded that Malaysia had one leader who ruled for about 3 decades or more. If you had allowed Nkrumah perhaps 2 decades, we would have been better. If you begin to compare the state of Ghana and blame Nkrumah that we didn't need to have independence at that time, we needed to have allowed some space, then compare our country with those who delayed in attaining independence. They may have increases in infrastructure, but the social and society, how do they live? Xenophobia is something that is so profound in South Africa. Majority of South Africans are living in Nkwala. There is a seemingly apartheid that is still ongoing. So were we just interested in allowing them to put infrastructure and expand infrastructure at the expense of our human dignity, where people have been dehumanized, where people have been denied their basic rights? I really think, if you ask me, I would choose the latter. I would say that no, I prefer that we should be liberated so that we can begin to find our own solutions. The only way we can do that is begin looking at the kind of policies we formulate, not take policies from the West that are motivated by the Bretton Woods institutions, hook, line, and sinker. Let's domesticate some of those assistance. We can no longer live as a continent without, the assistance of others. But what kind of assistance do we need from them? How can we be talking about the city appreciating in value when we import virtually everything in this country? How can we be talking about Ghana Beyond Aid when we are selling our DTT to no less individuals but China, who have an interest in it? But when we come to that topic, I will tell you a revelation and a shocking information I got in China when I visited with the then Minister for Finance at the Chinese Exim Bank. What they told us, this is a government that claims that their interest is to develop this country beyond aid, yet we are selling the dignity and the honor of the Ghanaian people. So the danger of Africa today is no longer colonialism, but unbridled neo-colonialist tactics that has now also been taken over by the Chinese government. And I think that we need to be conscious of that. Yes, we must read our history, because Cesaro says that if you fail to know what happened before you were born, you will remain always a child. So we need to know our history and put it in context, and to tell those who think that Nkrumah legacy must be destroyed, that Nkrumah legacy lives on.
Well, Honorable Ibrahim Mutala, Comrade Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed, starting the debate on Nkrumah and what they stood for. And if you just join us, you are listening to the Mother of All Talk shows, Alhaji And Alhaji, and of course, a big thank you to those of you watching us on PAB MCGH. You can use the opportunity to share your views on the topics we are discussing. And Abu Nakorai did that, and he says that I guess one of the problems Nkrumah had was the fact that his vision was so far beyond what some of his contemporaries had. He spoke as if he is alive today. He indeed foresaw what they could intend. Don't forget, you can also share your views through our WhatsApp platform 0233995905. Let's come to Ambassador Sampiali.
Well, Senator, good morning.
Good morning.
And good morning to our listeners, and through PAB TV to our viewers. First and foremost, let me extend my greetings to all members of the NDC Professional Forum, and to encourage them to continue doing what they are doing for the NDC's Victory 2020. Senator, yesterday was such an important day in the history of the Pan-Africanist world. And surprisingly, the president of this country conveniently avoided even a mention of Nkrumah anywhere. But is it his fault? Our president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is in a conflict between history, his own ideological beliefs, and that of his heritage. Because those of us who have known Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and also have read about him know very well that throughout his education, in spite of the fact that his father was a champion in the UP, United Party, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo remained a devout and staunch Nkrumahist. I want to repeat that this president is behaving the way he's behaving because he's in conflict. He's in a certain conflict in his environment, because he's now faced with defending his heritage and defending his own beliefs. So conveniently, he ignored the celebration of the 109th birthday of such the greatest of the great heroes of our time. Senna, when I was a little boy, about 5-6 years, the only recitation I could remember offhand was Nkrumah Never Dies. At that time, we did not even understand the meaning of what Nkrumah Never Dies, but we had so much belief in that phrase that one day, no matter how long, we will still see Nkrumah. I did not know that in my early 60s, I'm still discussing Nkrumah at Radio Gold. You understand? So it goes back to the historical phrase that Nkrumah never dies. What you have put before us is to discuss his vision. And to the extent that many people, especially the youth of this country, have been denied access to reading his works and legacy, to the extent that we have decided deliberately to teach religion and moral studies as against history in our school, we will never get what is right. The people who are helping us to design our education curricula have made sure that they will never allow us to go back and understand our history. And in reggae, they said people without a history are vultures. So that is where we are now. If you don't have a history, you are a vulture because you don't have a culture. So this is a country that is producing scholars who do not have any business learning about their own history. So in spite of the fact that there's proliferation of churches and religious things, we still go to schools and then never learn about our own history and culture. What Kwame Nkrumah represents, who he was, cannot be explained by those who do not know Kwame Nkrumah or those who have never heard or read about Kwame Nkrumah. You understand? It's like somebody writing the Bible 400 years or so after Jesus Christ had died, and therefore he has several versions. I chanced on a book written by one Samuel Obing, and with your permission, I want to read the foreword of that book, which was written by no other person than Colonel I.K. Achampon, Head of State and Chairman of the Supreme Military Council. With your permission, I read. The death of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, first President of the Republic of Ghana, on April 27, 1972, demonstrated one of the greatest ironies of our time. That a man who was so much maligned, condemned, and rejected by his own people should at his death be praised and loved so much, and he finally accepted by his own people again, appears to testify to the charisma and greatness of Kwame Nkrumah. He continues. Not even those he antagonized by the severity of some of his actions during his lifetime could deny that by his death, Kwame Nkrumah became the victor. The fact that he died so far away from home and away from his people he had loved so much, as well as the long, painful suffering he had to undergo before his death, could in any sense be regarded as his purgation. Nkrumah's death should transcend all feelings of hatred, animosity, and revenge, and should enjoin Ghanaians and freedom fighters all over the world. Now, let me paraphrase and read one of the most important things. Nkrumah's speeches, some of which are being presented together to the world for the first time, still glow with the force of his personality, his conviction, and in the face of powerful opposition, his originality, his vision, as well as his impatience. Kwame Nkrumah brought freedom and unity to Ghana. Kwame Nkrumah brought freedom and unity to Ghana. And it was his dream to unite the whole continent of Africa in freedom and bring dignity to the Africans in his own land. But while he worked relentlessly towards his end, his methods and sometimes his priorities were not always easily accepted by all. On his death, many proclaimed Nkrumah's strategy. On his death, many are now proclaiming Nkrumah's strategy. Sena. Comrade Mutalawa was making a point about the fact that he is so ashamed about the University of Ghana burning books of Kwame Nkrumah. But Mutalawa, comrade, it was not the fault of University of Ghana. One afternoon in August 1971, this is the writer, when I heard a news broadcast on Ghana Broadcasting Corporation that an Act 380 of 28 August 1971 had banned the use of any slogan by word, photograph, or policy document intended to revive the Convention's People's Party or its leader or chairman, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, I decided to gather his speeches from those who had them. So, my point is that it was not the University of Ghana, but it was an act of parliament supervised by Dr. Buzia Dr. K. Ebuzia, who was the president of Prime Minister of Ghana 1969 to 1972, who sent that act to Parliament that nobody should read anything about Kwame Nkrumah. Senator, when Kwame Nkrumah was the Prime Minister of this country, before he became Prime Minister of this country, Ghana had been divided into two. Those who believed in a national development and those who thought that we should continue with our colonial legacy. Because they were the ones who had gone to school, who could speak the Queen's English, like Comrade Mutela said. So they were comfortable reserving the status quo. But Nkrumah saw beyond and decided that he would create a nation state. And after creating a nation state, he would also, by foreign policy, ensure that every African was also free. This was born out of his experience in the Pan-African movement that has arisen so strongly in the early 30s in the United States, where the Africans who have gone to US and other countries came to the consciousness that, hey, listen, we are not white, we are blacks, and we were brought here for a purpose. Then the purpose was subjugation, and the purpose was slavery. The purpose was that we should toil for the development of this country. Now it's time to go back. This was the consciousness of that time. At that time, economic independence was not our priority. At that time, it was political independence that was our priority. And therefore, you could hear Nkrumah say that, seek ye first the kingdom of the political kingdom, and all others shall follow. So it was not out of naivety that Nkrumah decided that he would seek the freedom of the whole of the continent. Because Kwame Nkrumah just could not live and see Ghana as an independent country and Togo still under French rule. That was inconsistent with his Pan-Africanist belief. They told us, like Mutala said, Kwame Nkrumah was not a Ghanaian. His father was a Liberian. But that didn't bother Kwame Nkrumah a lot. After all, he even married an Egyptian. In his belief that all Africans are one. So whether you call him a Ghanaian or Liberian, didn't bother Kwame Nkrumah. But that was not the only thing that was bothering Kwame Nkrumah, that they were using to humbug Kwame Nkrumah. They said Kwame Nkrumah was a demagogue. And those days, there was a school called Ghanaian School of Arts. They created a cartoon called Homota. And you could see Kwame Nkrumah like a dragon. Those cartoons were all over the place. Kwame Nkrumah like sucking blood of Ghanaians and throwing them one by one. People still have those cartoons. So the imagery of Kwame Nkrumah has been created to be that of a demon. Yeah. They demonized him, but that didn't still stop Kwame Nkrumah. They said Kwame Nkrumah was an occultist. Everything that was evil on this earth was put on Kwame Nkrumah. Their modern day version is incompetence and corruption. The modern day version of what they did with Kwame Nkrumah is incompetence and corruption. But all the lies that were thrown on Nkrumah is what they threw on Mahama. And by the same strategy, they won the election. By the same strategy, they overthrew Kwame Nkrumah. And what has been the effect of the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah? Since the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah, the whole of Africa has been on autopilot. Without a direction. Without a political or economic sense of direction. Today we are talking about Africa unity. Another time we are talking about African Union. Another time we are talking about sub-regional cooperation. We have been on autopilot. But if you are listening to Kwame Nkrumah, when he met the African leaders in Accra and listened and gone ahead with what he said, Africa will not be where we are now. But of course, we have forgotten that he told us that we have driven away the colonialists, but they will come in another form. You understand? A form that allows them to come and take your bauxite. A form that allows them to now send your people as slaves. These days, those people are not even packed into ships. So we walk across the Sahara to be made slaves. Nkrumah warned us. We didn't hear. until we go back and faithfully and remorsefully apologize to ourselves about what we have done to Kwame Nkrumah in his name. It will take centuries to reverse our fortunes. Mark my words. Chief, if you read this book, you will know Kwame Nkrumah, who he is, who he was, through the books, through his speeches. Do you know that there was Kwame Nkrumah who made Kumasi a capital? Do you know that? Did you know that? No. Yeah, it's Kwame Nkrumah who declared Kumasi as a capital. Kumasi was a metropolis. And in that day, on that day, he told them, I know the animosity you have against me, but some of you too have told me that you have repented. I want to take your repentance in good faith. But what is at stake is that we need to put our cast face up for the total development of this country. Kwame Nkrumah gave us a nation, Ghana. We are now dissecting the country and allowing Togo to go away. We are now breaking this country into smaller units. And that is why the colonialists want, don't they? Anytime we are strong, they fail. Anytime we are smaller, they win. So that is what they are assisting us to do. Even our education system, they are helping us to destroy it. Because otherwise, why would Mahama focus on technical and vocational education, just as the Americans and the Germans have gone, just as the Chinese and the Japanese have gone? And we say, no, we don't want that. We want free education where everybody go to grammar, go and learn grammar and come back, and come and do what? In their countries, Mutala, are they not taking COVID seriously? Are they not taking technical and vocational training seriously? Why is the IMF giving us money to destroy our economy, our education? We sit there, we are laughing. Why wouldn't they mention Gettysburg and forget about Kwame Nkrumah? Why wouldn't they do that? So Kwame Nkrumah is an anti-colonialist. He does not believe that any country should be an appendage of another country. Ironically, those who seek to control us, Britain was a small island as Ghana, isn't it? Britain. They controlled us for 100 years because of the bond of 1844, isn't it? Yeah. We struggled, we died. We went into slavery to gain our independence. Now we have signed another bond of 2018, an economic bond with China. Chief, how many years are we going to fight out of that economic bondage? How many years? And Nkrumah was a total Pan-Africanist because he, like I said earlier on, he did not believe that other countries or other continents should be telling us how we should develop. He didn't believe in that. So he said, look, I am going to industrialize my country. You also started industrializing your country. They blame Nkrumah, like Comrade Mutala said, that he had so much money. Yeah. He has so much money, agreed. Mahama had so much money, agreed. Buzia had so much money, agreed. Mr. Kufuor had money, agreed. Abdul Danko had money, agreed. But what have they done with the money is the most important thing. Are you following what I'm saying? And Nkrumah set up about 149 industries. So this one factory, one block or whatever it is not new in Ghana. This one factory or whatever it is not new in Ghana. Now, across the length and breadth of this country, from Palugu to Esiama to rice mills all over, Nkrumah had them. We had our own shipping lines. We had our own airways, Ghana Airways. Where have we? Where are they? So if you sell these assets, if you destroy these assets, then you turn back and blame Nkrumah for wasting your money. May goodness. And they sit in Tama. They stay in Tama sometimes, and condemn Nkrumah. Forgetting that but for Nkrumah, they will not be Tama. Yeah. They drive on the motorway, and they insult Nkrumah. Forgetting that but for Nkrumah, there will be no motorway. See, we are in the modern day colonialism. Take it or leave it. Because of the heritage government that we have. These are the ancestors of those who believed that Ghana must not be independent. Yeah. And they are so naive, it's so ridiculous that in their bid to discredit Kwame Nkrumah, they go to the extent, for example, to say that Nkrumah did not declare the independence at the Independence Square and the Polo Grounds. That too. That too. That Nkrumah did not declare independence, and that he did it on the floor of Parliament. You know why they were saying that? They were petty, but they had a meaning. That when Nkrumah moved the motion of destiny, it was Buzia, that's the candidate. That's all they want to link. If you second the motion, is the motion yours? Senna, don't laugh. Answer my question. If somebody moves his motion and you second the motion, is the motion yours? Oh, you don't answer my question.
No, it's not yours.
So you become co-founder. Chief, when you organize the demonstration all the way, send petition to the Queen against the construction of the Akosombo Dam, that it was a wasteful project. Now today you say you have solved doom so. Where is the electricity coming from for you to say that you have solved doom so? I am saying that it is not all changes that are correct changes. It is not all changes that are correct changes. Those of us who were young and were made to believe that changing Nkrumah could solve the problem have been made to believe now that changing Nkrumah was the worst thing that ever happened to this country and this continent. This continent, Africa. Because the African continent has been put on autopilot since Kwame Nkrumah, NASA, and the rest died. Africa has gone backwards. We don't even know what our foreign policy means. Say, regional integration. If you move from here to Nigeria, do you know how many borders you are going to cross? Now the African Unity Project, which was everybody's dream, has become an academic exercise. Discussed at an intellectual level and nothing happens. The woman in the market does not know anything about African unity. All they know is that there's an African Day. We all celebrate on the holidays. Until we go back to the anti-colonial principles of Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, Africa will not develop. And you know the new nature of colonialism? France is guiding its colonial states, Ivory Coast, Burkina, and guiding them jealously. It's only the Commonwealth that is collapsing. But the Portuguese, the Spanish, and the rest are still protecting their colonies. Anytime AU go to meeting for discussion, they come and say, what did you say? Stop, don't go there. What is so even annoying is that at the AU meeting, at ECOWAS meeting, the same white men who want to liberate ourselves from are sitting there with agenda on the front rows. Anytime you go for a development meeting, they are still there. So why? Until we get leaders that have vision like Kwame Nkrumah, until we have leaders that have vision like John Mahama, there'll be a problem for us. Mutala, you were lamenting about the Kotoka International Airport. Yeah. You know why it is Kotoka International Airport? No. There was a man called S.B. Atta, a soldier, S.B. Atta, and another one, who, after the 1966 coup, captured Kotoka and killed him at the site of the airport. At the site of the airport. And that is why we named that place after Kotoka. The man who had organized the coup to remove Kwame Nkrumah was killed. And the person who killed him was also killed. But the man who overthrew Kwame Nkrumah, after the airport has been named after Kwame Nkrumah. Here we are. So, in one breath, we say coup d'etats are not good. In one breath, we are internationally glorifying coup d'etats. This is our bet. This is our bet. This is our bet as a country. Since Kwame Nkrumah left, he left us with Ghana Airways. Where is Ghana Airways? Tell me the one single improvement that we have done to the Ghana Airways. No improvement. We sold their assets. The Ghana Airways, we sold their assets. There's a plane, whereas KLM, Egyptian Airlines, Ethiopian Airlines, Kenya Airlines arrive at our airport. Ghana Airways is a choba. Ghana Airways is a choba, sitting just across the airport. Is it forward development? Mutala, is it development? Kenya, even Rwanda. Oh, Rwanda is a big country now. But when you go to outside airport and you see Air Chad, Air Seychelles, tiny country with international airlines, then you see how backward and bankrupt the country has been. Thank God. Now there's a Mahama terminal, isn't it? And from the pictures I've been seeing, it has proven to be the most important addition we have added to Kwame Nkrumah's airport. Me, I don't call it Kotoka Airport. I call it Kwame Nkrumah Airport. And the terminal, I call it Mahama Terminal. Because he deserves it. When he started this terminal, you were in Parliament there, but you heard the comments by these people, detractors. No wonder when the airport terminal, Mahama Terminal was completed, they couldn't be bold enough to go and commission it. He started, so we had test run, then they have started. It is time that those of us who believe in Nkrumah understand that we are in an ideological war of those who believe in Africa, who are pan-Africanists, of those who believe that the white man cannot no longer be our masters, have to come together as one and find those who have historically believed that Ghana and Africa must be colonial countries. That's what we have to look at. Because when we were talking about flashing out apartheid, they were talking about dialogue with apartheid. Kwame Nkrumah didn't believe in that. So those of us who are in the NDC and Social Democrats, those of us in the CPP, those of us in... Names don't mean anything. It is the ideological umbilical cord that binds us together. That should be the issue at stake. And I want to end by saying that it is not all changes that are good. It is not all changes. Nkrumah's change showed us that it was bad. Mahama's change has proved more beyond all reasonable that Ghana would have been better than what it is today. Have you seen the tapes of about 18 months economy? Have you seen it? Have you seen the tapes of the economy? We have the it is a castle as you come there. Have you seen it? Have you seen the fundamentals of the economy? And then for the first time, our dollar has hit 5 cedis. Have you seen it? Is it the change we called for? Is it the change we are calling for? And even today, as NDC goes into various congresses, there are some people who are talking about change. Yes, change is good, but not all changes are good. Not all changes are good. We need a blend of the old and the new, so that as a party, we would look forward into the future and also be guided by history. So I'm appealing that it is not all changes that are good in a man's life. Nkrumah will never die. 109 years, but now you'll be the oldest man in Africa, but his name is still being mentioned. That is what it means. There have been presidents in this country, there have been prime ministers in this country whose name can never be remembered. Whose names can never be remembered. But we still, at the AU level, at the continental level, at the international levels, still refer to the works of Kwame Nkrumah. So Nkrumah never dies. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Ambassador. And before I bring in Bernard Mona, let me do a couple of the messages you've been sending to us. And this one from Abdulaziz Accra, Newtown, says, hello, good morning to all your panelists, especially my brother, Mr. Mutala. May the good Lord guide you. And 2020 shall allow you be in Parliament. And this one from First Lady Takrady says, I am very grateful to all of you. You always bring us from darkness of lies to the truth. Why is it that the NPP always panics at the mention of Kwame Nkrumah's name? Ghanaians should know that the very enemies of this country are the NPP and their ancestors. If they had not overthrown Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana would have been ahead of even America. Musa Abatwa in Kumasi says, Sena, Ambassador Sampiale and Comrade Mutala have educated us, but my problem has to do with some sycophants in our political space, as well as educational curriculum trying to brainwash students against Dr. Nkrumah. His illustrious son, he's an illustrious son of Ghana, and his vision towards helping Africa as a whole will never die. My regards to incoming National Chairman, Honorable Fosuampo for Williams Koforidua says history is the landmark by which we are directed into the true course of life. The issue of a movement, the issue of a nation, the issue of a race is the guidepost of that movement's destiny, that nation's destinies, that race's destiny. What you do today that is worthwhile inspires others to act at some future time. This one, Habib in Sawam. Sana, good morning to you and your cherished listeners around the world. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's legacy and ideology is far, far greater than just gaining independence for Ghana and the total liberation of all black people around the world. The MPP/UP are the enemies of Ghana. If not so, when Nkrumah was fighting for independence, now Nana Akufo-Addo's father and others were fighting for independence later. Today, Akufo-Addo has taken us back to slavery by selling our sovereignty and nation to the Americans and the Chinese for over 100 years. God have mercy on us. 2020, GM Sure Bet. And this one, Asanko Santa Maria. The MPP's Somiswe government is offering Ghanaians with the most lawless, buga and patapa type of governance. No wonder it is messing up with everything. Banks, NHIS, SHS, and the economy are all collapsing. The only thing they are best noted for is mischief and being diabolical against political opponents. That's from Asanko Santa Maria. And finally, AU Farouk Tamali. Good morning to you and to your able panelists. In fact, the Energy Minister Peter Mewu lacks knowledge in the energy sector. What a baseless press conference. Is rather making us more angry than ever. 2020 is just at the corner, and we will show the super incompetent and corrupt MPP Nanado the assets. And Bernard Moran.
Mr. Numbo, it's been quite some time I've not seen your face. And Ambassador Sam P. Yali, my uncle who has derelicted in his duties, and my kid brother Murtala Mohammed.
I expected it.
I was pleased.
I expected it.
I was pleased when he started his submission by acknowledging that his senior colleagues, because he's always contended that I'm older than him for only 2 months. Yesterday was a very, very interesting day. It was a day of joy, even as it was a day of sadness. A day of joy because that is said to be the date that Nkrumah was born. Indeed, in Nkrumah's own writings, he is doubtful of that date, because he said that according to his mother's recounting, he was supposed to have been born somewhere in 1912. But the Catholic priest who enlisted him first or enrolled him in school on his first day predicted his age to be 1909. And later in life, upon his own calculation, he suspected that possibly it was not the day, because using his name, and normally Akan names, he realized that he was not supposed to have been born on the exact 21st. It was supposed to be around 18th of September. But for official purposes and for consistency with the records, he maintained the date 21st September 1909 as his birthday. So this is a man who himself acknowledges that dating has always been a problem at the time, because record keeping by our parents was not exact. And so in the guesswork, and I'm sure that even in modern times and where I come from and many other communities, you are yet to have the first generation of graduates. You are even yet to have somebody properly complete secondary school in some communities. And so keeping dates of births has been a problem, and that Nkrumah acknowledged in his own writings. So be that as it may, 21st September is what Nkrumah himself officially agrees is his birthday. And so yesterday is a day of a bit of happiness, but also a bit of sadness. Because on this day was born what I describe as the African philosopher, the only philosopher of Africa. And he contributed his quota to Africa, to the rest of the marginalized world, and indeed, he magnified Ghana beyond what it's supposed to be. Personally, every 21st September, I take a trip to the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, and I'm sure the director there will tell you, every 21st September in the morning, I pass by, take some water, and just pour it on the grave of Nkrumah to signify that he should continue to be at peace. Yesterday, when I got there, UTV, and I say UTV, and I want Ambassador Yali to listen, UTV, not GTV, not Daily Graphic, not Ghanaian Times. When I got there, it was UTV that remembers that 21st September is an important day, and they were there. So as I was passing, they asked, I said, no, I come here every year to do my thing. So they decided to follow me to go and do what I had to do, only to come out to realize that they were actually doing a live broadcast from the place with R.O. Frimpong from Ashanti region. And so when I came, they had started their live broadcast and I left. But something struck me, that GTV, the nation's station, established by Kwame Nkrumah, did not find it fitting to check the place where the man who made them what they are is. They did not. So after that, I had a television program on Pan-African TV. But for the past 3 days or 4, there have been series of activities to more or less reposition the vitality and essence of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. The concerned Nkrumahs of North Africa, America have been engaged in series of activities. The first was held on Thursday at the College of Surgeons. And then, was it Thursday? No, on Wednesday at the College of Surgeons. And on Thursday, they were at the University of Ghana, where an intellectual processes took place. And yesterday, Friday, they were still at the University of Ghana, the University Guest Center, where I had to go and chair partly the section, and then after which I had to go to Winneba, where Pan-Africanism Today also held a big event. Indeed, when I got there, I was astonished because my friends and colleagues from other parts of Africa had arrived in Ghana the day before, and they were all eager to see me. But I told them that series of events in Accra will keep me coming there late. But I met friends from Burkina Faso, friends from Togo, friends from Botswana, friends from South Africa, friends from Zambia, Zimbabwe, almost everybody from Algeria. They were all there yesterday to celebrate Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and to talk about unifying the struggles of the masses against capitalism and neocolonialism. So, if you sit in Ghana and you don't find Nkrumah to be the founder and not worthy of celebration as Mr. President did yesterday, people from outside will come and tell you who Nkrumah really is. The President of Ghana yesterday, being the birthday of the foremost Ghanaian whose construction is the reason for which you are in the house, could not issue a simple statement recognizing that Nkrumah was born after all. The president of Ghana did not issue a statement to recognize that Nkrumah was born and that Nkrumah accepted 21st September as his birthday. Just that statement to say that, look, one of the greatest that happened was Nkrumah. It's something too difficult for the head of state. And yet our independence is the reason for which you can be president. And that independence was solely and vigorously pursued by Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Having said that, you see, listening to Ambassador Sampi Ale and many others, I stand in a different position that, look, we should not be celebrating Nkrumah because of the physical, developmental issues that he brought to us. That cannot be enough, because one day, we will lose count. We may not even find those physical things. I say this because in recalling with pain that Ghana Airways is now a chop bar sitting opposite Marina Mall, which Nkrumah magnified. The first time black persons could pilot a plane to arrive in New York was with Ghana Airways, and people were shocked when they turned to find out that the pilot and all crew were black. They did not believe it. It was with Ghana Airways. The first pilot, female pilots, came from Ghana. All because of the instrumentality of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. But today, our kids, Ambassador, your grandchildren, my kids and your grandchildren, Motala's kids are your grandchildren. Your grandchildren will not remember Ghana Airways. And so those things that Nkrumah brought, fiscal things, if we continue to have governments like we have, that will take every opportunity to sell Ghana Airways. We sold it in order to balance 1 year budget. When our budget was in disarray, we sold Ghana Airways in order to put our budget back on track. Since then, our budgets have not been in disarray. I hope you understand. So to celebrate Nkrumah because of the fiscal things, the industries he developed and what have you, will not be sufficient. But we have to celebrate Nkrumah for the philosopher that he is. The body of ideas. He did not just speak, he wrote. Some of his writings took place at the time he was president. He was writing at the time he was president. And having served, and let me take the opportunity to salute the memory of President Evans Atta Mills. Because this day that we celebrated as Founders Day yesterday was because Atta Mills proclaimed and pronounced it. And indeed, I was fortunate to have been part of the 19-member committee to celebrate the centenary of Kwame Nkrumah. I received many dignitaries across the world. And I remember when President Mills went to the African Union, it was held in Sirte, Libya, and announced that the centenary of Kwame Nkrumah was in 2009, in September, and that he was declaring the day as a public holiday. He got a standing ovation. Everybody got up and they clapped the longest for mentioning that Nkrumah's birthday will be a public holiday in Ghana. That was at the African Union level. And all Africa on that day declared that day to be a holiday in their various countries. Beyond that, the African Union took a decision that the only figure in Africa that was meritorious of having his or her statue within the African Union was Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So if you go to Addis Ababa today, it is only Nkrumah's figure. It is only Nkrumah's figure that is there. At the time they were doing this, Gaddafi was alive. At the time they were doing this, Mandela was alive. None could compare, and all of them agreed that the greatest African that walked the surface of Mother Earth is Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So, given the writings, the philosophical thinking, the verve at which Nkrumah wrote and put his ideas across, Nkrumah is just not a mere mortal. He belongs to the category of Marx. He belongs to the category of Einstein, Plato, Aristotle, and many other greats. So students of political science, history, and what have you go to school to learn about Marxism, and they fail to learn Nkrumahism. That is the paradox in our educational system. You go to school and they are teaching you political science. They are talking about Plato, Aristotle, Marx, and others, and they fail to teach you Nkrumah. It is a paradox. Our education is without content. Because we should, look, if you go to Makerere University, they teach Nkrumahism and Pan-Africanism as a master's degree program. So Nkrumah has become more or less an institution. You understand? Where you consult, an institution where you consult. Nkrumah has become the development Bible or Quran of Africa. Unfortunately, we are in Ghana, and we are using partisanship to cage the greatest thing that ever happened to us. And worse is that there is a new attempt in the world to put a Mandela ahead of Nkrumah. Despite that in all the attempt to put Mandela ahead, votes from BBC, not any African radio, in 2001, put Nkrumah several points ahead of his contemporaries and made Nkrumah the African of the millennium. Not African, not 10 years. So when we're talking about millennium, we are not talking about 10 years. You understand? We are not talking about 100 years. We are talking about several thousands of years. Nkrumah is adjudged as the African of the millennium. So, why would anybody sit down and instead of taking Nkrumah, and we could create Nkrumah in almost every region and every district in this country, and that alone will constitute a huge source of tourism into our country. Nkrumah would be the greatest source of income, tourism. If you go to Kulungugu, we should have Nkrumah there. Oh, because your English master was not good. You don't know that it's not tourism. It's tourism. It's tourism. Uncle, let the man know that it's tourism. So you could get Nkrumah in Zimaland. You could get Nkrumah in the Upper West. You could get Nkrumah in the Northern region. You could get Nkrumah in the Upper East region. You could get Nkrumah in the Brona Hafro region. You could get Nkrumah in the Ashanti region. And that, as I said, is a source of income. As we speak, there are several, about 100 sites in South Africa where Mandela has been positioned as tourists. And people go there. Hundreds, they deliberately created 100 different places in South Africa. And people visit and they make money. If you go to India, Gandhi is the greatest tourist thing that has happened and continue to happen to them. Even in the United States of America, when you go to Washington, D.C., there is a King Square. Queen's Garden. I'm sure most of you have gone there. You go there and you pay money. And they have put some of his speeches along the walls. You go to Harlem, you find Malcolm X. What are we talking about here? We are here and we are engaged in pettiness. Pettiness to the extent that President of Ghana is claiming or is oblivious of the fact that yesterday was Nkrumah's birthday. Nkrumah was beyond partisanship. Nkrumah was Ghana. And wherever you stand, you must appreciate that. So Nkrumah must be studied in our various institutions, just as we study Karl Marx, just as we study Einstein, we study Plato, Aristotle, and the others, because Nkrumah belongs to their category and constituted some of the best source of knowledge for mankind. Indeed, books that he himself wrote are still there for us to go and pick and use that to teach. It is not that we are now going to even write the books. What Nkrumah was made up of, he put together. And that is what, for me, we should be looking at. Now, Ambassador, let me ask, has Ghana performed the funeral of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah? Ghana has not performed any funeral. He was only brought.
He was buried, yes.
He was buried. We are Ghanaians. We have a culture. We have a culture. You have not performed the funeral of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and you think that this nation can move forward? We have a culture and we must believe in our culture. None of us will lose your father and will not perform the funeral. Barrier is not performance of funeral. We all know that. So somebody should tell me when Nkrumah's funeral was performed in Ghana. Even as it is turning out that he is the only man that has been buried 3 times with a possibility of even being buried a 4th time. Because he was buried in Guinea-Conakry, he was buried in Nkrofo, and he's buried in Accra. If we can extend the logic further, now that it is his only status that is in Addis Ababa, it's possible that when Africa eventually unite, they will be putting Nkrumah at the headquarters of Africa. It's possible.
Very, very possible.
So let us, as a nation, perform the funeral of Nkrumah. That's my view. And matters on Nkrumah will then have come to a successful conclusion. You see, as to who is the founder and who is not the founder of Ghana, I think that one has been settled.
That's why this year they didn't talk about it.
I think that the noise that started last year, we all saw that that noise did not come. Useless noise did not show up this year. And so, now that everyone is agreeing that the founder and undisputed, uncontested founder of our nation is Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, it should be the point for us to now navigate on the various plans that he put forward for this nation to move. Some, as I keep telling us, some of the issues on the development plan that he put, you revise figures, you modernize them, but the framework will remain the same. The framework will remain the same. Because if we were to use block and others, today we'll use formwork. So some of the designs will change, but the framework continue and will be the same. That will be the panacea to the problems that we face in our continent.
At the time we were using fabrication.
Let me just use this moment to dispel some silly things that have been said over the period. One of it has been that Nkrumah mismanaged the industries that he set up. And within the period, he set up over 100 industries. From Bolgatanga to Raura, he set up industries. From Pando to Nantong, he set up industries. From Sankana to Axim, he set up industries. In my village, you go there and you still find GNTC building. That building is still in Sankana. GNTC, Ghana National Trading Corporation. That is shopping mall. You understand?
60s, 50s and 60s.
That is shopping mall. Today, Melkong and what we call them shopping mall, Accra Mall, Kumasi Mall. And people are doing as if it is a new concept. Nkrumah did it. And I'm saying that the building is still in Sankana. And people who have traveled to Sankana, like Kofi Wayo and Co, will tell you that that building is still there. Things that were sold in any part of this country, in the capital city, you could find them in the villages. Today we don't have that. Food Distribution Corporation, Yamutu. Fishing Corporation, Yamutu. And when Fishing Corporation is Mutu, do you understand? What that means is that now our fishers will go and harvest their fish, come and stand, and nobody buys them. We wait till getting to sunset. And the fish are perishable, by the way. When they begin to deteriorate, they will sell them at knockdown prices to the middlemen. But Fishing Corporation was there, that as soon as the fish was harvested, the vans were there to buy them, stock them, so that we can have continuous use. So that in communities where you could not get fish, the Food Distribution and Fishing Corporation were there to ensure that they could also survive on fish. I say Yamutu. Our meat factories, Yamutu. Our shoe factory, Yamutu. Our rubber plantation, Yamutu. Our jute factory, Yamutu. Our Aboso Grad factory, Yamutu. Everything that Nkrumah brought is gone. And you have a shoe factory. Just take only shoe production for our security agencies. And tell me how much millions of dollars we don't spend annually to buy shoes from other countries. We are talking about Army. We are talking about Navy. We are talking about Air Force. We are talking about police. We are talking about prisons. We are talking about fire service. We are talking about immigration. And we are even talking about SEPs. Their shoe alone, their boots.
Even the private security companies.
We had the shoe manufacturing here, and we decided to tombe it. And people come and tell you that you don't know how much money you will save, hard currency you would have saved, by ensuring that the importation of this was localized. So you will not spend that money. The CD will not be depreciating at the level that the IGP has left it on bail. You understand? Because the IGP left the CD on bail, and yet the vice president is thinking that it's still under lock. So we cannot say we don't know. The other thing that I just wanted to say in conclusion is that the Akosombo Dam was commissioned late to early 1966, late 65 to early 66. Indeed, I think that January 66, Akosombo Dam, which is supposed to be the source center of our industrialization project. Most of the industries that Nkrumah built were now just about being completed, because you know the gold refinery, for instance, was not completed yet. Many of them because they were all waiting to depend on power. So just at the point of their completion, who invests money into starting a business and expect to make profit the same day or the same year? Then you are not a business-minded person. So the huge capital investments that went into all these projects that are mentioned, industries, they were yet to start full operation when the inglorious 1966 coup took place. And therefore, that vision, all the money, all the investment was left to waste, because those who took over did not have the presence of mind, as Nkrumah had, to be able to continue the path that he was developing. Indeed, since they were coached to overthrow Nkrumah, they were coached to ensure that the agenda to set our country and our continent free was also overthrown the same day. So our industries were not allowed to work. As Nkrumah departed from the prime ministership, which was a colonial relic, in 1969, what did we see? In order to continue the faith, we decided to return to prime minister. That was to tell you that we were still under bondage. So yesterday, and indeed, I'm sure up to Sunday, which is tomorrow, because people are still in Winneba from all Africa with Pan-Africanism today, they are celebrating and will continue to celebrate the greatest. In December, particularly on 8th December, 8th December was the day the All African People's Conference was held, 1958, in Accra. And so the Pan-African Federalist Movement want to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the All African People's Conference that was held in Accra from the 8th of December to the 13th of December, to relook at the uncompleted agenda. And I want to salute the likes of Dr. Donata, who designed the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. And what do you call that thing? The thing that they built. If you look at the memorial, we call it the mausoleum, yeah? If you look at it, you see that it is like a growing baobab tree that has been truncated at the top. And you should sit closer with Dr. Donata to tell you the reason for which they did that. Africa was growing as a tree, and just in the middle of it, we decided to cut it by the 1966 coup. May Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah continue to rest in peace. He lives forever.
Well, that should wrap up the discussion on our first topic. But before we move to the second one, if you just join us, you're listening to the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, and we are live on affiliates across the country on the internet and, of course, on PAB MCGH on Facebook. A couple of the messages those of you watching on Facebook have been sending to us. This one, Isaka Al-Hassan, says, like father, like son, this old man should go at all costs in 2020. And also, Kuke Davis said, I salute Kwame Nkrumah today for all that he did for Ghana and Africa. That's, he says it's at Ashaiman Zenu Kube Crew, number 1, Dave Mill Avenue. And Kofi Kumejaja says he's watching from Sassuolo in Italy. And Manfred also says, God bless all your panelists. J.H. Humble Eagle says, they say the evil men do lives after them. Sampia Kumbeli says, Ambassador Sampiali has made my day. Thanks. And this one from Ale Pinda says, the current African leaders must do away with the colonialist ways and follow the teachings of King Selassie, Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, Stephen Biko, Colonel Gaddafi, Nelson Mandela, among others. And those are some of the messages you've been sending through the PAB MCGH platform, through the WhatsApp number, that's 0233-995905. Some of the messages you've been sending to us. Let me just share a couple with you. This one, good morning, Radio Gold. My name is King Hassan in Zabzugu. I wish Kobrin Mutala Mohammed the very best of luck on his bid to contest as parliamentary candidate for Tamale Central. Comrade, we, the youth of Northern Region, are proud of you, and you are one of the few people we are looking at. May the sky be your limit. This one, Black Joe Nima says, I sow a seed, and the seed will germinate. Indeed, Nkrumah never dies. That's the word. Those are the words of a great and a visionary leader that Africa will never forget. If Ghana and Africa at large will follow the ideology of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, will have been a developed continent by now. And this one from Essie says, good morning, Radio Gold. Do you know that the officers at the Independence Square who are supposed to solve the computer placement to schools problems are robbing Ghanaians of 1,000, 2,000 Ghana cedis before changing the school placement for students. So please, you should investigate about that for us. And this one, there's clear indications that the NDC can recapture power in 2020, looking at how the MPP government is mismanaging the economy. The internal elections of the NDC can also determine our chances in 2020. I want to urge my fellow delegates to elect the competent leaders to lead the NDC. Inshallah, 2020 will go show Nana, this St. Prince Amanasi. And this one, finally, good morning, panelists. Ahead of Mr. Tony Edu for a long time. Please send my greetings to him. I'm sure he had heard that. He has heard that Kwame Nkrumah was the founder, so Akufo-Addo should also arrest the dollar for sector in Tema. And before we move on to our next topic, that's this coming from our sponsor, Apollonia City, and they are giving big, and it's too good to be true. Get rewarded with cars or loads of amazing home appliances when you buy a home or a plot of Apollonia Mega Dash Promo. A 3-bedroom story at the Oxford gets you a brand new Suzuki Baleno from Silverstar Auto Limited. Any other home also gets you top-notch home appliances, but that's not all. You get loads of quality home appliances for simply buying a service plot in Apollonia City. There are no draws and no raffles. Exciting, isn't it? This promo is running from now to the end of September. Everyone wins in Apollonia City's Mega Dash promo. Visit www.apollonia.com.dh/Mega Dash or call 0275 577 577 for more details. You can also send an email to sales@apollonia.com.gh. Terms and conditions apply. Now let's talk about the digital terrestrial television space and the debate over whether or not Star Times will be the one managing it, and government's attempt to defend contractual talks with them. Comment with that.
I think that the case is very simple. We have been sold, or there is that attempt once again to sell us to the new neo-colonies. In this case, the Chinese government. We have had a long-standing relationship with China. The relations Ghana indeed has with China predates even our independence. And China has been a partner. So I just want to make that point very clearly. It should not be misconstrued into saying, as it has been banded somewhere, that the NDC government is against doing business with the Chinese government when we had engaged in some form of businesses with the Chinese government before. That is absolutely far from that. Sometime 2012, we decided as a country, and in line with international, global agenda, to migrate from analog television to digital. Maybe for the benefit of your listening and some viewing public, the analog is just the old system, TVs that we had, and some still have that TV stations, or those TV sets. And that one, you don't have access to any other channel except the channels that operate within the country. So if you have an analog TV set, you can only get the TVs that are operating, on analog. First and foremost, you could get GTV. You could, in fact, initially it was even GTV, only GTV in Ghana, until TV3, Metro TV, and others came on board. But if you have an analog TV, you cannot access the multi-TV stations that are operating on digital, and many other TV stations now. You could not access those stations. So we decided that based on global practice now, almost every country was migrating from the analog to digital. There is economic reasons why we could not be left behind. The economic reason, and also there is educational, cultural, and many other reasons. That if you are left behind, then you'll be limited in terms of the information that you have, in terms of your access and the reach with which you can access information globally. we were limited, and therefore we could not be left behind. So in 2012, the NDC decided to indeed migrate from the digital to analog. So we needed to get a company that could do that. And under the prevailing circumstances at that time, we didn't have the financial muscle to do that. Remember that the MPP had indeed started, single spine when they knew there wasn't any money to start single spine, and many other things. We had challenges economically. Dumso was also another huge challenge. There was a global economic meltdown, so in which Ghana was not, exception. So the government needed to do that, and the view is that globally every country should migrate onto it by 2020 latest. So we decided that based on the role that we have played in relative terms with other African countries, we needed to, the view was that by 2015 we should be fully migrated. So we're looking for a company. And why we chose Star Times at that time? We chose Star Times because Star Times had promised us, a Chinese company, first and foremost, that yes, we don't have the money. If you can get the money to be able to do that and then operate it so that as and when the monies are paid, depending on the contractual agreement, it becomes our property or the kinds of arrangement that we're going to have. Now, Star Times promised us that they were going to get the money. I think it was about $100-something million, right? They were going to get the money from the Chinese Exim Bank. So it was upon that assurances that government of Ghana signed the contract with Star Times. And in every contractual agreement, there are clauses. Breaches of those clauses comes with some, damages too. Now, when we agreed and signed the contract with Star Times was supposed, based on the contractual agreement, within 1 year, they were going to start, the migration. So what it means is that within 1 year, they were going to access that money to start it. After all, accessing the money, getting the money from the Chinese Exim Bank was the understanding as captured in the agreement that government of Ghana entered into with Star Times. 2012, 2013, they couldn't access the money. 24, government of Ghana was exercise some patience to let's see what happens. Let's give them another year. 2014, they couldn't access the money. Until 2015, government of Ghana decided to abrogate the contract. That we gave you almost 2 years, you couldn't access the money, and it wouldn't make any sense. We allowing you to do that because the target was that by 2015, we should have migrated. So we abrogated it. And then looked for people to bid. And in the bidding, there was a lot of companies that bid for the contract. And KNET won, a Ghanaian company. A company that has the experience in that particular field. Multi-TV and others, all the addition was done by KNET. So when KNET won, now Star Times took us to court. Because this was a company that was, even though it was an international company, a foreign company operating in Ghana because of the contract that we had with them. They took us to court at the High Court. We won. Government of Ghana won. They went to the appeals court. Government of Ghana won. They went to the Supreme Court. And government of Ghana won. They then decided to take the case to a London-based international court for arbitration. Now, one thing people must understand, even lawyers will tell you, that the international arbitration in dealing with the case, they would have taken note of how the case traveled within the local court. And it stands to reason that if they went through all these courts up to the highest court of the land and lost the case, there is no any way the Star Times could have won the case at the international arbitration against government of Ghana. There is no way. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I promised I was going to tell you. Your Excellency, sometime 2015, I traveled to China with the then Minister for Finance, Honorable Seth Tekwe. I traveled and in the capacity of representing my minister, Honorable Spio Gabra. It was on a business forum that we went between government of Ghana and China and many other countries. So when we went there, the Minister of Finance, the arrangement, we said, look, let's take another step to see whether we could access the loan from the China Exim Bank. So as part of the program, wanted to kill two birds with one stone. Yes, we are going on a different program altogether, but let's factor that one in and see whether we can make a last attempt to see whether we'll be able to access this money, the 3 billion. You know, we had about 1.5 billion. I went to the China Exim Bank with the Minister for Finance, and this is the first time I am stating this. When we went there in the negotiation, and the Minister of Finance, I must say, put up a very solid argument justifying the need for the other part of the money to be given. The Chinese were unwilling. Whilst we were having that discussion, we had a coffee break. And one of the top officials at the China Exim Bank called me aside whilst we were taking coffee and told me that our ability to access that money hinged on the StarTimes contract. So invariably, what they were telling us was that regardless the breaches of the contractual agreement between government of Ghana and the StarTimes, if you want us to give you the money, you need to do what we want you to do. That is where the new colonization also comes in. Against even the fact that the people could not execute what they wanted to execute, against the bridges, against the fact that they went to 2 different courts at that time and lost the case, went to a 3rd court and subsequently and lost the case. They still wanted to push it down our throats. This is what responsible governments do. The NDC stood to its grounds and said, no, we're not going to go ahead with this because all the promises you made, we are not going to do that. We have gotten a Ghanaian company, you know, through a competitive bidding. The Ghanaian company indeed won the bid. And as a matter of fact, KNet had done almost 90 or more % of the work that was supposed to be done by StarTimes. Per even this current corrupt and incompetent Ministry of Communications' own statements and position, KNet have actually done over 90% of the work which StarTimes failed to do. Now we had to sell part of our property. You know, the G4, which MTN was the first company that even who got the money to do that. So we no longer need any money from StarTimes or the Chinese government. Now, one thing that I can't understand, and like we say, I can't think far. Now, looking at how this case traveled, and the fact that in all the courts up to the Supreme Court, we won. These people have gone to the international, London-based International Court of Arbitration. Now, the argument we made was solid. And in fact, StarTimes even lied in some of the things. You remember there were some briefs that indeed they would have a claim if they actually spent some money to execute some of the projects. And they said that they imported some of the equipments to Ghana. There isn't any evidence that they ever brought any equipments to Ghana. When we pushed, they said, they had taken the equipment from Ghana to Nigeria. How? You didn't take them through anything. Even if it was done by air or by sea, there would have been evidences that ABCD was done. And in any case, if we are bringing equipment to Ghana based on a contractual agreement we have, the Ministry of Communication and Government of Ghana should be aware. Because part of the agreement is that you are supposed to enjoy some if you do tax let go, there is a term that you exemptions. You were supposed to enjoy some exemption. No evidence to that. So even if you look at all the circumstances, there is no way anybody would tell me that we wouldn't have won this. This government went in because they needed money from China. They said, okay, we will agree. And the most dangerous aspect of it was what even my comrade friend stated earlier on your program, that they want to enter into an agreement now, provide us with about $90-something million. Then you do an evaluation of what StarTimes KNet has done. Evaluation of what a Ghanaian company has done. And if there are some problems with the migration, then you correct those ones, and that will be used as a basis for signing a new contract with you. It doesn't make sense. Can't we get another company, even a Ghanaian company, to do an evaluation of what KNet has done? And in any case, most of the companies have been, TV stations and media have been migrated onto the system. The only thing that is left to be done is not within the control of KNet. It is within the control of Government of Ghana, which is the electricity bit of it, and which the Ministry of Communication itself have admitted. So clearly, you have the First Lady, who is virtually being given so-called support for children by StarTimes. And with alacrity, her own Facebook page, she has indicated how they have gotten assistance to some exchange programs with schools in China and schools in Ghana, where they will provide our schools with jerseys and footballs and others. I am telling you, on her page, and then she showed the picture when they were presenting the jersey to her. I mean, what kind of rip-off is this? That we must do that? Now, you have a government, this is the irony, that is preaching, Ghana beyond aid. You have a Ghanaian company that has done something tremendous, that we would have been saved paying this money. And in any case, if you look at how much those companies, those media houses or TV stations are paying, there is no way we can pay the money. So if we can't pay the money, you have that company, a Chinese company, that has gotten the money from Chinese Exim Bank. Now looking at the terms of payment and the amount of money they pay, all of them, if you finally migrate them on it, if you go by this Chinese dangerous agreement they want, we will not be able to pay the money after some time. Then China Exim Bank and the Chinese government will come in and say that they want to take charge. We have seen what happens in Zambia and what is happening in Uganda. Because we made outrageous promises, and those promises must be fulfilled, regardless the intended and unintended consequences of the fulfillment of those outrageous promises. We have to do them for political expediency, not the debt portfolio. Because remember, this loan is not going to be captured in our books. It's going to be captured in the books of Star Times, which has gotten that money from Chinese Exim Bank. I mean, what is this? Yet the civil society and the moral group, they are quiet. They see nothing wrong with this. The so-called economic aspect and financial aspect, no. See, we see nothing wrong. We hear nothing wrong. We smell nothing wrong. Go ahead and do it because it's Nana or Nana. Go ahead and do it because it's NPP. So why should we be blackmailed? Because this is a clear case of blackmail. If you want to have the money, agree to sign this contract. If you don't agree, then you not have the money. That is what they are telling us. That is what they are telling us. So just as the vigor and the energy with which we condemn the West, I think that we need more vigor and energy to condemn China. We need that. It is not about who we have, if like economic relationship with. It's about our interests first and foremost. What progressive societies do, they look for their own interests first and foremost. Regardless what Donald Trump is engaged in America. But the Americans think that he seeks the American interest first and foremost. So why is it that our leaders are not interested in what will benefit Ghana first and foremost? They are thinking of what will benefit them so that they can have some monies in their pocket, or their utopian campaign promises which they knew in the hearts of their heart that they could not fulfill. So look, you don't need anybody to tell you that this deal stinks. Look, you have this minister. I'll be shocked that one day this minister and her two deputy ministers are not prosecuted and possibly convicted. They have been engaged in those outrageous contractual agreements. Look at the Kelly GVG. We pay $1 million to a company for doing no work against all experts' advice. We pay that money against even a board of the NCA who have argued that the NCA has the capacity to do the very work you want to pay that foreign company to execute. The NCA, look, and I tell people, when I was a member of parliament in the finance committee, my position is very clear. Even under the NDC, when we wanted to give this to Suba and others, I spoke against it. That at that time, we could build the capacity of NCA to handle that. The capacity has been built. Do you know the Kenley GVG is operating with NCA's building? Yes, that is where they operate. NCA's buildings and facilities are the facilities they are using to execute the so-called project when they have done nothing, and we have paid several millions of dollars to them. We are implementing a very useless double track and possible quadruple track system with the excuse that we don't have spaces, that we need about 180,000 spaces. Yet we pay $1 million to an organization that is doing virtually nothing every month. Do you know what that $1 million can do every month in the provision of spaces for the schools? When you have E-blocks that have been reported abandoned, and each of the E-blocks has a capacity of 1,500, these projects have been abandoned, and this government is not interested in that. We are paying this money to Kelly GVG. We went in, the same minister and her deputies, we went in for Google App, $2.5 million. And by the way, both the minister and his deputy came out with different statements as to whether the government of Ghana has some financial commitment to pay to Google. Whereas the minister, Esther Owusu, said that we're going to be paying $400,000 to Google every month, the deputy minister says, no, we are not paying anything. And you had the then Minister for Information, I was on Joy FM, and he said that we should take what the deputy minister says and not what the minister says. The same ministry. If this is not thievery, I'll be glad to know what qualifies for thievery. I'll be glad to know. And this was the same minister who called President Mahama thief, Julo. So I'll be shocked. One day they can run with such outright broad day robbery. One day I see them being prosecuted and convicted. You have special prosecutor. I am shocked he hasn't resigned up to date. I am shocked Mr. Martin Amidu has not resigned up to date. One secretary, one office. Yes, such a same, and by the way, he doesn't even have any credibility and credulity. This is a man who appeared before appointment committee and said all the things he said about President Mahama and the NDC were lies. Because he said they were all based on perception. Yet he made conclusive statement. Such a person, if he is asked to head an institution like the special prosecutor, what can he do? So deliberately, they have made mockery of him. They have refused. And the reason why they have refused to resource him is that they were thinking that it was just going to be the NDC, and the kind of robbery that goes on in this government is legendary. So if he is going to be independent to do his work, he will begin going after them, and that is one thing they will never do. If Mr. Martin Amidu has some little principle and honor left in him, he should resign. Because the robbery is just everywhere. Everywhere they rob with alacrity. You have a president who indeed, under your own government, set up a committee to investigate visa racketeering at the Ministry of Youth and Sports. The committee has not submitted their report. You went on national television and says the very person upon whom the investigation was said that the deputy minister didn't do anything wrong. I mean, is this not a joke? Is this not a joke? So I'm saying that this deal is a deal that borders on our integrity and our national security. Because at the end of the day, based on the kind of terms of payment, if you are not able to pay, StarTimes is not able to retrieve the money. The China Exim Bank, by extension, the Chinese government takes over our media. I mean, how liberal is even the Chinese media? They take over our media. They have an agenda. And which borders on our security. We know how a control of the media can do to a country. We know. We know how. We know how dangerous that thing is. And nobody seems to care. I think that this is an issue that we must oppose with all the blood left in us. This thing must not be allowed to stand. And by the way, the people have even started working on it long before there is any proper contractual agreement entered between government of Ghana and the StarTimes. And maybe the lawyers will tell us that is illegal. That is illegal. If we want to enter, because once the contract was abrogated, if you want to have any deals with StarTimes again, it has to be a proper contract, isn't it? Which needs parliamentary approval. But it's an international company. And you know one interesting thing, in 2015, while this problem was going on, StarTimes had registered as a Ghanaian company to operate in the media space. So they will be at advantage against other media houses. And that is why Giba and Co are all raising concerns. So if you think that the NDC is doing that for political purposes, if you don't even trust the NDC, what about the other bodies who have the responsibility and the mandate to engage in this? What about their position? That any time this government is like we are ruled by the whims and caprices of the king. In this case, the king is King Nanado. This country is ruled based on his whims and caprices. It is not even ruled based on the MPP beliefs and their manifestos. It's what the king wakes up every morning, depending on what he ate last night and what he thinks this is how this country is governed. If President Nana Addo says that I want ABC to be done, who dare you to question? So if they won't even listen to reasons in their own political party, why do you think they will listen to MPP and other political parties? Why do you think they will listen to civil society groups? And you have the willing participants who are supposed to be helping and ensuring that right things are done. Section of the compromised Ghanaian media, section of the compromised Ghanaian clergy, sections of the compromised Ghanaian civil society groups, they are all in the complete state of incommunicado. That is the stage they are all in now. That is where they are all in now. They care less what happened to us. They care less what happened to this country. What their interest is that you must not be seen criticizing Nana Addo. And the very things or some of similar things that happened, in fact, not even similar, things that were done under the NDC which were condemned as wrong. Today, you have worse things that are done and they say all politicians are the same. Even those who gather some courage to stand up to the ills of this government, they still are not courageous enough to say that this thing is wrong. What they say is that all politicians are the same. All politicians can't be the same. The NDC didn't go and buy Google app at $2.5 million. The NDC didn't pay $1 million to a company for doing nothing every month. The NDC didn't attempt to sell the sovereignty of this country by entering into a most dangerous military pact with the Americans. You remember there was a time they said ban on fishing. You remember? Just for 2 days, 3 days. It was not ban on fishing. It was the Americans who were coming in. 800 of them are in this country. 800. 800. So that ban was a ploy. They are in this country already. They are in this country already. That was what they did. You have you have Cocoa Board. The one who you are prosecuting people because you think that they supply fertilizer, by the way, which brought about huge yields. The First Lady's sister is the one supplying Cocoa Board with all the fertilizers and chemicals. The First Lady's sister. And they're thinking of setting up even a processing plant. That was the same thing these people were doing. And by the way, those who did that, for which reason they are being prosecuted, they brought about positive results. You check the cocoa production in the 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2015-2016 fiscal year. With this, what are we gaining out of that? The Ministry of Special Initiative is controlled by the First Lady. Everything there is done. And I'll tell you one thing, Your Excellency. You know they are providing these toilet facilities for communities. There was a money budget for about $140 million in the budget. You know what they did? They brought one small girl from South Africa, one princess from South Africa. The lady was picked, in fact, a girl was picked at the tarmac to the First Lady's place. And you know what? After the monies are gotten, this girl is brought to be the one to supply the thing. Even the government themselves had agreed that they were going to have many Ghanaian companies to supply this solar thing to feed those toilet facilities. Only for the First Lady's office to decide that everything should be given to that girl. Anybody can do that. You give me the money, I can supply it. The Ministry of Special Initiative, or whatever the ministry, is controlled by the First Lady. Let them come and deny that. Let them deny the fact that it's not the sister who is supplying fertilizers to Cocoa Board. Let them deny that. Yet nobody seems to care. The civil society group, they are just quiet. The moral society, they are quiet because it is not about President Mahama. It is not about the NDC. It is the creme de la creme of Ghanaian politics, the dawn of Ghanaian politics, the legal luminary of this country, which is in the person of Nana Addo. Who dare you to talk about the king? Because the king is beyond criticisms. And when you criticize the king, either they tell you are arrogant, either they tell you are disrespectful. Nana Addo is untouchable. Don't talk about him. If you talk about Nana Addo and you are a young person, you are disrespectful, you are arrogant, you don't respect. Yet they have said worse things about NDC leaders and nobody seems to care. Unfortunately, some of us also fall prey to this particular propaganda. And I think that, look, we need to stand up. We have a moral duty as a political party. The NDC has a moral duty. If for nothing at all, we have a moral responsibility to liberate this country,
to liberate this country from this kind of leadership.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mutala. And His Excellency.
Yes, sir. So Mutala,
Yeah.
comrade, after all, it's not Lord Mahama alone who's an evil woman,
Yeah,
who's a corrupt woman.
yeah, without even evidence.
That the second question is that why is it that when NPP is in power, their most favorite projects are toilets?
And because that's where they get a lot of money.
No, it's a serious thing. Because even when we went to Hippic, you remember? You could drive along the main routes and you see Hippic benefits, and it was all toilet. Why is it that they are so fascinated about toilet? Why?
They get a lot of money there.
My nephew, what's the name? It's my nephew. Bernard. Long time ago, we used to go and queue at Accra, Bank of Ghana, opposite Bank of Ghana, to go and make international calls. And you'll be sleeping at 3 o'clock. Maybe that's the time your relative in London or somewhere has closed. They'll come and call you. By the time you go there, the line too is off. Sometimes you spend 3 days. Then John Mahama came in to say that let us liberalize the telecommunications sector. John Mahama. And today, my friends in Kumasi they were calling it Bijabontin and Mekase. So anybody who will forget that the current revolution in the telecom sector, where we have reached, was pioneered by John Mahama, will be reading a geography book instead of a history book. Since the liberalization of the airwaves, a lot of changes have taken place. Of course, from the days of Tiger Eye Radio, the Tarzan thing, the GBC does not enjoy the monopoly. But the revolution in the sector saw the upsurge of Ghanaian ingenuity and business people. So we have had a lot of Ghanaians setting up radio and television stations. Fortunately, I'm yet to see any foreigner owning any of the radio stations. Because if they do, we are lost. We are finished. Because the things that have invaded our airspace recently have destroyed even our football. Now, when Black Stars or any team is playing in Ghana, we are not watching. We are watching Liverpool, Manchester, and the rest. This is a result of the kind of programming they do. Then we entered into this Bold and Beautiful. You remember those programs? And then the Mexican opera, soaps, and all those things. That has also killed virtually our film industry. So everything every policy that a government undertakes must have antecedents, a review of a situation before they come out with a new policy. And a new policy coming should seek to correct an existing wrong with a certain situation. What are this Star Television, Star Times problem, this contract, what does it seek to correct in our telecommunication industry? What does it seek to correct? When a Ghanaian company, KNet, has developed such a platform, and there are even some problems with it, a good government will not throw it away. They will seek to improve it for the sake of the Ghanaian entrepreneurship. So when you say you are a friend of the private business, that is what you must be doing. You don't bring rival companies from outside to outclass and outplay your indigenous businesses. History is a good teacher. The same people who said they are friends to businesses did not see it wise that, look, if we are taking our interest from Ghana Telecom We should look for Ghanaians from within and from outside because of the strategic nature of the telecommunication space. We brought in outsiders. They sold our Vodafone. We sold our whatever, nice MTN and the rest. And the kind of obnoxious agreement we signed with these companies allows them to repatriate their profits. You know, if it was an incentive, your Minister of Trade, if it was an incentive, MTN and the rest have operated for more than 25 years in this country. Is the incentive still valid? What evaluation have we done to the extent that we can say that, oh, they have taken more money than we can take? Are you following what I'm saying? So if MTN decide that, oh, this year we transfer every dollar we have made out of this country, because everybody every day is texting, every day is telephoning, so a lot of money is in that communication sector, and they collect all this money and send it outside. Why wouldn't your CD jailbreak?
It's a fugitive now.
Why wouldn't your CD jailbreak? And you remember even the pastors from Sankana or wherever they come from, are now collecting monies in physical cash and changing them in dollars. And you remember a pastor was caught with dollars in a car tie, exporting away. Why wouldn't your CD run away? Why wouldn't your CD run away? You have pastors who openly say that we are not more collecting donations in CDs. Are you following me? They are now collecting contributions in dollars. So if you're at airport residential area, there's $5,000. Where is the man going to get the $5,000 if he's not going to the black market to change those monies? Sarah, to change those monies and give it to the pastor, and the pastor would not use the money here. He go and buy a ranch in America. Why wouldn't your CD? So, it is not the fundamentals. It is government policies that are lacking to solve this problem. Now, you remember the case of Suba. That Suba thing that came. And I remember my sister Oslowusu was the most vociferous.
Yeah, very.
To the extent that before the elections, NPP has planted on the minds of all Ghanaians that NDC has bought a company that was going to be used to rake the elections, and went and attacked Suba at Roman Ridge. What has changed since they took over? Boss, what has changed? The Ministry of Communication, please, Mutala, we may be a prophet one day. Because since Oslewusu, who had been the most vociferous critic in everything the previous government did, assumed the role of a minister, nothing transparent has ever happened in that ministry. And he's a lawyer. I'm sad about this. You even go to court, the court asks you to bring contract document. You say, give me 6 months. When the contract has been signed just a few days ago, which lawyer will sign a contract on behalf of his client and will not keep a copy? Still, today, as we are talking now, no Ghanaian knows the contents of the Kelvin GVD contract. No Ghanaian knows about it. But who is going to pay? The loan you have taken, who is going to pay? It's not the Ghanaians. It's not you and I, our tax money, that's going to be used to pay that. And anytime there's a problem about that, my nephew, this man, I'm forgetting the old age. No, after Georgiana, he's always in the defense. You remember this, our friend, no. This think tank.
Okay.
Imani.
Yeah.
Imani has written concisely about the rot in the Kenny baby. Yeah. Still, nobody is talking about it. Now, you are all forgetting that President Mills thought it through with a program that we needed Chinese loan of 4 billion. You remember that time?
Yeah.
And that part of it was going to be used for the gas plant. Yeah. We're going to use some for the armed forces buildings and the rest. And we're going for it from the Chinese. PAM, they started the war, STS. Yeah. They they spoke and talked and made noise until we had to abandon a large chunk of the Chinese loan. They portrayed China as an evil destination for going to take any facility from. They even wrote to the IMF that, hey, these people, by going to take this loan, would go beyond IMF standards. And so we had to forget about the loan. They use what we call the sovereign bond as a campaign strategy. Sovereign bond, sovereign bond. If you went to my village, people were talking about sovereign bond, and they themselves didn't even know what sovereign means, and the bond was. The sovereign bond that we're going to use to build the armed forces building, the police buildings, are they not better than the Ken bonds?
Ambassador, we usually don't do this, but I'd have to break into your submission because Deputy Minister of Communications, Vincent Odote, has called into the program. He said he wants to respond to some of the things that have been said in relation to the Star Times discussions and contractual talks. And he joins us on the line.
He should pay and come and sit here.
So if you can hear as Honorable Odote, exactly what are your issues, and please address us.
Thank you very much. My regards to my colleagues in the studio, especially Mutala, and your cherished listener. First of all, let me thank you for, as you say, you don't normally do this, so I'm very grateful for the time. And let me thank you for the time. First of all, let me state categorically that StarTimes has not been handed a contract to manage the DTT platform. So the misrepresentation that we're handing over our media to a foreign company is not correct. What we have done with StarTimes is that at a meeting which Giba was present and all of us were there, we agreed that the first phase of the DTT, which resulted in the 40 channels, was inadequate. So there needs to be a second phase to expand the channels from 40 to 60. From 40, we need to add 60 to make it 100. That's where the responsibility for that has been handed over to StarTimes. After that, the operation, the proper migration, when it's completed, will be managed by a publicly incorporated company of which Giba and other key stakeholders are directors of that company. At that point, it is a publicly owned company which will decide who will manage this platform. So we must separate this issue of the contract of expansion of the digital channels to when eventually it comes to the operation of the digital platform. And all stakeholders, Giba, NC, and all of them, they have representation on the board. That's the National Digital Transport Company, and then they will decide on who will manage that platform. So we need to differentiate that. And I also had Mutala saying that the NDC decided at that time to go digital. NDC did not decide. The ITU gave each country, we had a deadline that you must migrate. So it wasn't a decision which they had any option for us to remain on analog. So that propaganda must stop. There's also an issue of civil society are not in bed with MPP. They are not talking because there's nothing to speak about. You had when we were doing the Kelly GBG, you had Franklin Kujo. He came on. We defended. They went to court. Issues were transparent. So this issue that civil society are in bed or they support the media, it is not correct. This is all part of the propaganda. You also spoke about Pinanado. That is far from the truth. That is far from the reality. When we were going to sign the military cooperation agreement, when NDC in the past have been doing this discreetly, we rather went to Parliament, for Parliament to for the people of Ghana to know exactly the kind of things we are going through with them. So I'll plead with my colleague Murtala and the things he's talking about. StarTimes, when they awarded the initial contract to StarTimes, was it based on financial considerations or technical competency as well? He must tell us. Was it just the fact that they said they were going to pre-finance, and also they gave the contract to them, or because they have the capacity to execute and the specification in accordance with technical specification? They must tell us, because we shouldn't spin the thing as if it's only about financing. The financing agreement, contracting agreement are different from operating agreements. So we have not given, and let me repeat, we have not given the responsibility of managing the digital platform to StarTimes. So the issue about they taking our airwaves, StarTimes started operating before NPP came into power. We did not bring StarTimes to Ghana. They had a license. They were operating commercial digital television before we came into Ghana, before we came into power. So we did not bring them in here. This whole issue about StarTimes, about digital television, is all being misrepresented. We have not signed a contract with StarTimes to operate the digital platform. It's just the second phase, which is separate from the first phase. When we speak about, I had my friend Musa talking about they gave it to Kenya, a Ghanaian company. There's no company in the history, there's no government in the history of Ghana that is supporting a lot of local companies. Let me give you two examples. The digital addressing system was awarded to a company, a local company. Go to Accra Digital Center. Maybe my friend Mutala will know, as part of the e-transform project, there's supposed to be an M-Lab and then an I-Hub at Accra Digital Center. We gave that contract, it was won by a local company of startups, young boys who came up with a consortium and won the World Bank contract to execute the mobile, the innovation hub as part of Accra Digital Center. I'll plead with my colleague Mutala, let's make sure we back these arguments and we back all this analysis, not a propaganda, but proper analysis that will make sure that the Ghanaians will be properly informed. Ghana is moving forward. It's not propaganda. People speak about, I heard my colleagues speaking about the fundamentals. Let me tell you something. To transform an economy, to transform Radio Gold as it is, there are things I call one, hygienic factors. The hygienic factors in an organization is like proper auditing, proper financial management. In an economy, the hygienic factors are the fundamentals. Then you can move on. As we said, the fundamentals are not the end game. But you need those fundamentals, like whatever you do in your organization, Radio Go, before you can strategically transform what you're trying to do. So I'll play with my colleague Mutala. We make sure that we tell the people with the issues which are there. We really educate them properly what the issues are, and then we can make an objective analysis. I'm not saying they should have the same viewpoint as we do, but I can tell them that a lot of the things he has shared out are not correct, and they are just there to throw dust in people's eyes. StarTimes has not been handed responsibility of managing a digital transform. That is a fact. And if he has any document to show that they've been handed the responsibility of managing a digital transform, he should put it into public. That's what I wanted to correct.
Well, I think
my name is Soa Odote.
No, his name is Vincent Soa.
Yes, I know him. Vincent.
Or you can call me Obama.
Ambassador. Let me end
Vincent,
with him.
no. I want to ask him one question. Vincent.
Yes.
Are you there? He's gone.
No, he's on. You can
Vincent,
ask.
I want to advise you that any government policy that generates such controversy, it means that has not been properly communicated. That's the first point I want to tell you. Any government policy that elicits ignorant comments from people like us means that contract has not been properly explained to the people of Ghana. If you say that you have not handed over anything to StarTimes, in the same breath, you are saying that the second part of the have you handed it to them. What kind of analysis are you doing? What kind of analysis are you doing?
And that's the small question you'd have to answer before you leave us. Is the question of according to Mutala, what they brought in StarTimes to do is the work that KNet has done. You said that what StarTimes is coming to start. This is not the first time StarTimes is coming to the matter. Now that you are bringing them aboard, one, do you have a contract with them? Secondly, exactly what are they supposed to do? And would you subject that contract to parliamentary approval? Have you done that already? Well, we understand it.
No, quickly, because he mentioned my name in all of this. Your Excellency, let me, first and foremost, in fact, his intervention even makes their case worse. I believe that if he could get the tape and listen to himself, he said that StarTimes has not been handed any contract. Yet, in the same statement, he said that they have given the second phase to StarTimes. What second phase? You remember when I talked about that contract? I said that the contract with StarTimes was abrogated by government of Ghana. So it means that while the contract is abrogated, there is no any contract as far as we are concerned between we and StarTimes. Remember the contract we had with StarTimes went to Parliament. So if that contract is abrogated and you want to re-engage StarTimes, it means that you are entering into a new contractual agreement with StarTimes. That is one. So for you to say that it's just propaganda that you have asked them to do the second phase, we are talking about a program. Whether second or third or fourth phase, all the phases are part of the contractual agreement we had with StarTimes. So that is one. Two, I never said that civil society groups. I said the compromise section of the Ghanaian civil society. Now he made mention of Imani. Tell me, apart from Imani, which other civil society group indeed raise issues about this? So I said a compromise section of the Ghanaian media, a compromise section of the civil society groups. Now he also talks about the fact that the NDC didn't have a choice. Why? The NDC had a choice. If we didn't bring in StarTimes, if we felt that we didn't have money, we could not execute it. The fact that it's a global position or international position to do that, you do that based on your ability to have the means. Okay? So I said that initially when I even made this statement, I said, look, we were having a target to achieve, because the understanding is that by 2020, all member countries who are signatories to it should have been on it. I can decide not to be a signatory. So for you to come and say that Ghana government didn't have a choice, you see, what he's trying to do is that you can't give any credit to the NDC for wanting to migrate from analog to digital, because the NDC government didn't have a choice. Yet you have a choice in getting into this kind of robbery. And again, he didn't explain the point. On what basis are they truncating the arbitration? I said, which he didn't respond, we won all the cases, 3 cases in our local court, up to the Supreme Court, the highest court of the land. StarTimes took the case to international arbitration, right? That arbitration will not decide this case. In fact, what will be weighty in their decision will be what the domestic courts have done. And I'm saying that even in some of the reliefs they have given, they have asked StarTimes if they have evidence that they incurred some money. You have refused to respond to those things. So I don't know why he came into that point at all.
I didn't intend to finish my discussion without telling the deputy minister that if somebody is expressing his genuine political dissent, that should not be a propaganda. Because the points that have been raised by Comrade Murtala are technically sound, legally faithful. Are you following me? Then he's asking the question. There's a company doing something, and you want to bring in another one. Just as Suba took us to court, you understand, for unnecessarily truncating their contract. So, Mr. Ajaiso, or whatever your name is, I personally, I'm inviting you to the studio next Saturday. Next Saturday, come.
Yeah, let's discuss this.
Come and let's discuss this openly. And at the end of the day, the people of Ghana who are listening to us will know who is telling the truth and who is deceiving them. Now, let me come back to my issue. All over the world now, there's some jealousy in protecting national culture and identity. There's some jealousy there. Now, if we look at our television stations these days, I don't know the reason, but we are having the penchant of airing foreign films. And so, even our vocabulary has changed. Ghanaian vocabulary. We are now using more of Nigerian pidgin and accent against our own languages. Our style of dressing and doing things have changed. Any responsible government will be mindful of this. No, we don't have to bring in programs that would undermine our culture, that will undermine our Ghanaian personality. But we are not interested. We are interested in whether it's Starcom or, just as we spoke about Ram gold and Anglo gold and give away our gold. We are now interested in semantics and use of words. what Comrade Mutala said and what the minister said, is it minister or deputy minister?
It's a deputy
who
minister.
is doing propaganda that the NDC didn't have a alternative choice. Do you have a choice? What I said, that it was Mahama that opened up the telecom industry. Is it propaganda? Yeah. Is it not a fact? You don't want anybody to have credit. You always want to have credit. That is not how to govern. And with the greatest respect, if somebody like me is sitting on a program, I don't expect the Honorable Deputy Minister, whose salary I contribute in paying, to call me a propagandist. Because I know that I've contributed my due to this country. I deserve some respect and dignity. It has no right as a deputy minister whose office is run by my tax to call me a propagandist. Let me continue with my analysis of this times thing. I'm asking, why is it that anytime this issue of telecommunication comes in, there's so much controversy in this country? Why? Why? Why is it that the Chinese government is attaching any further facility to us to this StarTime thing? Why? Mr. Deputy Minister, are you not scared that our culture will be undermined? Mr. Deputy Minister, are you not scared that our local television stations are going to suffer? Mr. Deputy Minister, are you not scared that the Chinese can one day take over our television platform? Are you not scared? Mr. Deputy Minister, are you still not scared that we are losing our identity as Ghanaians to foreign culture? Please, we are talking about how many millions of these cities? 19 million or what?
What they got
from China?
About $90 million.
$90 million. Take the balance sheet of MTN, Vodafone, and the rest, and for the past 5 years, whether they have not been able to raise $90 million. Whether they have not been able to do that, a responsible government would do that. The government would go into partnership, you understand, with these television companies and the companies and say, look, we want to expand our digital terrestrial thing. We need 19 million. Float local bonds, and let's see if Ghanaians cannot generate that money. Any responsible government who says that they want Ghana beyond aid will not always go out burdening us with further loans. My fear, my pain is about the youth of this country who do not see the burden our generation is bequeathing to them. You go for 19 million, you go for 2.5 billion, even when an address is free on the internet, you go for $2.5 million and the youth are going to pay. What country is this? The fact that you have been appointed a deputy minister does not give you the right to call into a television station and say the things that you have said. I'm inviting him. I'll be ready for him next week. To come with the facts, with his facts, and we would talk the legal part of it, we talk the contractual aspect of it, and the implication. We'll discuss it. Okay. I'm a bit disappointed.
Okay.
I'm very, very disappointed.
Okay.
That a young minister like that, with an old man like this sitting on the television station, will call me a propagandist. Well, thank you very much.
Like I said, it's not typical of us to have done that, because ideally he should be sitting here, and then he can answer to some of the issues you're raising. But let's end with Mr. Bernard Mona on this particular issue, and let's take his views on the issue of the StarTimes and the government of Ghana contract on the digital terrestrial television space.
We are going to pay for my salary, or we are going to pay for my taxes.
First, let me say that technology has come to improve our ways of doing things. Growing up as a young man, I recall that my father would be told that somebody from the post office will come to the village and tell my father that he is expecting a call at a certain time. And note that many other people will be expecting calls. And you will have to run all the way to the post office to go and receive a call. The fact of even touching the handset alone was something very encouraging. We used to move in search of black and white television, which Murtala describes as analog black and white. Just to go and sit, and sometimes you have to bath very early and be peeping through people's windows in order to watch some things.
They told him the stories.
And somehow we have seen not only an escalation in penetration of modern gadgets that have fast improved our telecommunication, but also improved the dynamics of business. We used to have what we call passbook for banking purposes.
Do you have one?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
What year?
I had mine in 93 when I did my first national service. Yes. Passbook. Do you know passbook? Sam, you are not going to. Otherwise, next time I'll finish before you.
Okay, I'll wait for you.
So, many things have improved. And so, when we have seen an improvement in our modern ways of communication, and many of our young boys, particularly, have gone to study ICT, and they are very proficient Ghanaians. You just need to give them a platform, and you'll be amazed at the e-products that they will generate. What they do not have is what we call the capital or the track record that you need. And in most government tender documents, you'll be doing about track records and what have you. And these young guys with so much innovation cannot take advantage of it. So when the e-transform platform came, I thought, honestly, that we'll be looking to take advantage of that to ensure that most of our young people who are ICT proficient are given the opportunity to try and put something before us. I say this because when I was working at the centenary of Kwame Nkrumah, we were looking for somebody to develop or some company to develop a website for us. And from nowhere, two young guys who just walked into the office, having heard about the centenary and proposed that they would do a website. They went and brought us their concept. The many others that we even wrote to, thinking that they were institutions that were good. They came and gave us ordinary website presentations. And these young men went at length to tell us what their capacity is. And indeed, they delivered a solid website that is still up and running, even as the centenary is closed. So some of these things really, the rigidities that we put in place are a disincentive to our young population and to the many people who want to. What is it that we are battling now? An NDC government came into office. A company from China comes and the government of the NDC say no. A Ghanaian company wins. They took the NDC government to the High Court. NDC won. Went to the Court of Appeal. The government won. They went to the Supreme Court. Government won. They have gone for international. Now, destiny and work is not on the part of the government. So an election takes place and they lose. The same company now comes and is able to work its way even to the house of the president. Because I have problem with what we call the office of the First Lady. Nowhere in our constitution do we have a place for our First Lady. We don't have an office for the First Lady. And yet, we are making the wife of our president to be like she is also somebody who contested an election and she must be given an office. So the day that we'll get a president with 7 wives, you understand, we will create offices for all of them. So I don't see why we keep glorifying the issue of the First Lady's office. There is nowhere that there should be. Now, Star Times have worked its way to the President House. That is the First Lady. And they are using her to get the attention of Mr. President. So they are supporting her with football jerseys and other things that she intends come to donate. And when she donates, it is seen as the First Lady is doing something dramatic for our nation. Yet the people at the back are now eating big from the purse of the government by the kind of contracts we are giving them. Now, can you imagine that KNet and many others had gone for the second phase that Vincent Sowa is talking about? And Star Times also went for the same. By the time the ministry even decided to make any contract agreement, Mr. President would have been told in the House that, you know, these people have been supporting me with my First Lady job. They have given me this and this and this and this. So this contract that they are about to bid for, it should go there. Mr. President will agree and call the appointed minister that take note that I have an interest in Star Times. They will not say give it out, take note. So I am not in the least surprised that Star Times is getting the second phase, as Vincent has alluded to, because Star Times is in the bosom of the First Lady, or the First Lady is in the pocket of Star Times. You understand? So some of these things we should be able to trace and relate to them. But what thing extraordinarily is Star Times bringing? What are the gadgets that they are coming to install? Which gadgets will not compromise our airwaves? Some of the gadgets may be such that even when we put TVs in our room, they'll be recording things that we are doing in our rooms. So we should be minded. Our communication, our television, our flight, and many others are essential and critical national security issues. And if we do not know, one day we will sit here and they will plan a coup on us, and we will not even get to know until the coup is over.
Well, thank you very much, Bernard Mona. Unfortunately, that will end today's program for today. A big thank you for sending your messages. We're live on a couple of radio stations, including Radio Silver in Sekondi. They are one of the stations that are ensuring that listeners across the country get to listen to this program. And I was joined in the studio by Ambassador Sam Piale, who is president of NDC's Professionals Forum, Comrade Murtala Ibrahim Mohammed, former Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, Bernard Mona, who is a national chairman of People's National Convention. The program was proudly brought to you by Apollonia City, Cologne Ghana Limited, Ines Fly, TT Brothers, and Franco Trading.